recording. So hello and welcome to those of you who are here live, and also those of you who maybe are joining for the replay recording. So let's get straight into it. What I'm going to be kind of looking at and showing you today is ways that you can harness this kind of what we call universal energy. I'm going to explain a bit more about that in a moment. We're going to look at the quantum entanglement and making some of those remote shifts and changes. How to go from, oftentimes when you're doing change and transformation, be that physical, spiritual, emotional, or mental, there's effort involved. There is often things that you need to do, and oftentimes time, depending on the modalities you're using, a lot of time that goes into that. So we're going to show you how you can kind of be more effortless with that, and also how to change and transform. If you've been around the block a few times, spiritually, physically, mentally, or emotionally, and you feel that you've tried everything, this is something new, a different approach. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And I have to say, with this particular image, thank you to Paddy Huna. So this was me speaking at a workshop. It was actually a photo reading workshop, and he caught that shot. Well, he saw a picture that I shared on Facebook, and he photoshopped me into that vortex background. And he did this years ago because I used to do a load of, well, it wasn't intentional, but I started having a bit of fun saying, I'm going to Huna this football match. And I'm saying, I bet you, it is a cool shot, Andrew, it really is. And he said, I bet you I said, I bet you they're going to score in the next 60 seconds. And I'm going to go and get a drink of water, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get halfway there, they're going to score. And I said that on Facebook. Then I got up to get a drink of water, and 30 seconds later, so I'm halfway there, they scored. And that happened loads of times, and people started to go, Marilyn, you're like the octopus. So I used to get emails from, Facebook messages from people saying, Marilyn, my football team is playing, they're losing, can you Huna them? So Paddy was part of all these conversations and stuff, and that's why he created that picture. So a nod to Paddy Huna for creating that. And why this approach? It's remote and it's hands off. For me, I started in this line of work in October 2000. It has always been about rapid transformation for me, but not rapid for the sake of just going, oh, that was quick, but didn't work. Rapid transformation that had a lasting effect. So when I first started out, my logo, well, it still is, it was a water drop. And my intention for I used to do one-day breakthrough sessions. That's all I did for like the first 9 or so years, pretty much, apart from, running little online seminars, webinars, etc. But essentially my one-to-one work was one-day breakthrough sessions. And I set the intention that we'll do the one-day breakthrough session, and then the results of that one-day breakthrough session will ripple throughout people's entire lives. And that's exactly what happened. And years later, I got an email from someone saying he was working at a new organization. He said, I've got a colleague who's looking for an executive coach. Can I recommend you? I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And he said, oh, I've been meaning to tell you that the ripple effects of that breakthrough session we did are still rippling. The effects of that breakthrough session we did are still rippling throughout my entire life. And I was like, that's a bit odd. I'm pretty sure that was about 10 years ago. And I looked at my database, and sure enough, I'd done a one-day breakthrough session with him 10 years prior, and the effects were still rippling throughout his entire life. So that's really what I've always been doing. And this now overlays, hold on. Here we go. For those who haven't seen the logo, while we think of it, there we go. That's the logo, and that's what it's been. Well, this was actually created in early 2001 by Julia Kozan from ISBS. So she's the person who created my business cards, brochures, websites, etc. Gosh, it's a shout out day today, sharing Saturday. So it's always been about that for me, non-invasive as much as you possibly can do. And with this particular approach, it's even more non-invasive than doing, let's say, a therapy session. Because once you've sent the email saying what you want to achieve, that's it. There's nothing else you need to do. Now, there was the option, if people wanted to, where they could send a nail clipping. And when I did the remote experiments, it was 50-50. Half of the group sent a nail clipping, half did not. And we're going to go through some of those results so you can see them for yourself. What I noticed and what I loved as well, because my focus has really been on the physical body in the last 3-4 years, it's brilliant at supporting the physical body. great for clearing energetic blockages. And there's a thing called radionics, which then takes things to the next level in terms of what we generally call manifestation. And there is something called the manifestation protocol. And that is actually, I'm pointing there because I'm running a radionic session for someone at the moment because we're on phase 2 of the remote experiment. But this was kind of real next level stuff and kind of wow, even for me. And I've been working in this field for 24 years at this point. So what I'm going to say is stay tuned if you want to tap into what they call Nikola Tesla called it the ultimate primal force energy. It's a good way to shift physical and emotional blockages. We'll talk about that when we go through the results of the experiment. And if you're wondering why nothing is shifting, this is a real way to make those changes with far more ease. I've always been about the energetics, the connection, doing things remotely, whether I'm standing there in person in front of you or we're doing something online. And years ago, I was speaking at, this is an exhibition centre in London called Kensington Olympia. That's me in the little pink top on the stage. I was doing a talk for Psychology's magazine. And they lay out for a couple of hundred people. And as you can see from the image, there are people standing all the way up the aisles, standing all the way around the back. In the end, they had to sort of get people to sort of try and do a bit of ushering because they were blocking the walkway for the rest of the show. And somebody sent me an email after that. And she said, Marilyn, I was sitting right at the back of Olympia and I felt like you were talking directly to me. So where you see that red arrow is right at the back, and they felt as though I was talking to them. So very, very interesting. And Andrew said, I remember when you posted it. Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite shots because they had, someone doing aerial shots. I think this was before the days of the early days of the drones. But they said energetically, they felt like it was just me and them in that space. And you can see there are hundreds of people there. I've had the same when clients have worked online. And this was not just online. This was an MP3, so an audio recording. One of my lovely clients called Pippa Neve. She's at pippameve.com in Australia. I'm here in the UK. And she wasn't there live because of the time difference. That's one of the occasions. She said, I'll catch the replay. I said, yeah, fine. Just listen to it when you can. Send me your feedback. And it wasn't until years later when I was reading through her feedback for another program that I was running that I was reading. I was like, hold on a minute. Pippa is describing exactly what I was doing in terms of the symbols and the order and sequence. But the thing was, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. No one at that point had ever seen the Huna symbols because this was before I was running Huna workshops. All they were doing is listening to me doing the Huna. And this is how it would have sounded. Even someone who does Huna would have no idea what I just did because we all use our breath differently. Listen, and that was all Pippa was hearing. But then as I started to read through, as she said initially, my third eye and throat and heart center and solar plexus felt compressed and it was uncomfortable to say the least. I used a symbol called thunder. The literal translation, thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake, so people can feel it as a pushback. After the first round of Huna, I sensed an image of a triangle of fire. She had no idea that after that first round, I used the red triangle of fire. I'll show it to you a bit later. And that's what I use, because the red triangle of fire, I use that to burn away what we just cleared to kind of start clearing the decks for the next round. And then she says, during the second round, I felt the pain being drawn out via my heart center. She had no idea that I used the thing that we use in the soul plan readings called sword fingers, where you're drawing the energy out and we start in that center. And then she said, I slowly began to feel lighter. My heart center opens up more than previously. And I felt like I was glowing from the inside out. And as I'm typing this phrase, as the light of my soul is now able to shine throughout my heart center comes to mind. So I'd used the symbol, unbeknownst to her, to open up the heart space. And then I placed a symbol in that space, which the translation is the wave of light that makes you gasp. It's like, and I'll show you that symbol later as well so you can see it. And then she said the third round gave me a sense of my heart center expanding into the universe, and I've sensed to be more open, cleared the blocks, etc. So even if you can't make it live, your work. And I've been doing online coaching, online training, and online therapy since 2005. So well before the pandemic, the pivot, the remote working, all of that. And I have actually been a remote working specialist for since 2003. We'll talk about that later. And for those of you I haven't met, in a nutshell, my name is Marilyn Devonish. I've been a coach and therapist since October 2000. Started off studying to be a chartered accountant, but was quiet, shy, terrified of public speaking, lacking in self-esteem, and I was actually suicidal, so contemplated suicide in September 2000. Happened to do the training the following month. Not that I wanted to, I actually tried to cancel and ask for a refund. They wouldn't give me a refund, so I just attended to get my money back. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I'm trained in about 20 different modalities now. Started off with NLP, hypnosis and timeline therapy, which form the basis, the core basis of those one-day breakthrough sessions, and became a practitioner, master practitioner, and a trainer in those modalities. Went out to Hawaii to study Huna because it absolutely blew my mind, and trained in about 20 different modalities since that time. So EFT, DNA theta healing, past life regression, future life progression, tarot, access consciousness, emo trance, energetic NLP, soul plan reading, soul plan training, you name it's probably in there. And of course, the photo reading, accelerated learning. So I'm going to run you through the results today, but if you want to read the full thing in people's own words, you don't need to head over there right now because we're doing the webinar, but you can head over later to the blog where I put all the results. It's bit.ly, bit.ly, so www.bit.ly, bit.ly/remote quantum results. And feel free, when you have a read, share your aha moments on social media. You can tag me at Marilyn Devonish, and I can then kind of see those reshare, because everyone who took part very kindly shared their results in full. The only thing that's missing is their name, because I didn't identify everyone, but everything else is as is. So we've got the remote experiment results that we're going to run through. We had someone who was suffering with procrastination, for example. We had other people who had physical things going on, someone who was suffering grief and loss in terms of the loss of their business, loss of connection during COVID. Someone else who was waking up every 2 hours to go to the bathroom. You can imagine that's disruptive for your sleep. Someone else who said, suffering with all over muscle stiffness, and others, a couple of people with insomnia. So that's a flavor of what we were working with. At the start of that, I put a few studies together. Well, no, I hadn't put a few studies together, but I'd collated the studies that I'd seen, and I just kind of did a bullet point list of some of the scientific studies they've done using the equipment that I was using to generate the energy. And then what I did after the first experiment is I went back and I marked in red the things that people had already experienced after having 7 days of being in that quantum field. So things like increases in cell energy, boost in terms of their energy levels, enhancing body circulation, reduction in pain and inflammation, stimulating their natural immune function. Because this is what this is all about: supporting your body to do what it is designed to naturally do, speeding up natural healing, improving sleep quality, clears the mind, enhances focus and concentration. I'm pretty sure if I cycled through that list again, I could probably highlight a few more, but that's just to give you a flavor of that original list and then the things that people reported as we did the results. So in a nutshell, before, 6 people took part in the experiment. So 1 was suffering with low energy. After that, felt motivated to exercise. 2nd person, high blood pressure and stress. After, better motivation, sharper intuition, clearer mind. 3rd person, kidney problems, tiredness. They reported back after a couple of days, I think it was the first night, best night's sleep they've had. And they said overall at the end of the 7 days, they were feeling cleaner. Before, someone, 4th person, osteoporosis and hip pain. That's all they said they wanted to work on. Just 3 words. That's what I said: ease. And by the 4th day, less pronounced limp, less pain. They were walking up the stairs without having to use the handrail. And by the 2nd weekend, they did something called the Candy Dance, which is a song by Cameo. And they did it not once but twice. So we'll talk a little bit about these. And as I said, I'll show you people's own words. Someone else said they were dealing with grief, hurt, and business losses. And after, they said they felt connected, uncapped, because they said they felt as though their energy, their flow, their creativity, their spiritual connection had been capped, as though there was a block on it. So they said they felt connected, uncapped. they're channeling again, and in their words, they wrote in capitals, "I'm back." And then the sixth person said they were suffering from muscle stiffness and problems with eyesight, and they said they had muscle release. They also had more flexibility and flow in terms of, let's say, their personality, and so they're out making small talk. And so that's just a very quick snapshot of those results. Now, a couple of things. For showing up live, we've got a couple of bonuses. One of those bonuses is you get to be in the scalar energy field and have a bit of a taster of the harmonic frequencies for 24 hours. So we'll have a little talk about that. And also one of the bonuses we'll talk about with regards to what I've got planned for a workshop for this. But so there are a couple of bonuses for those of you who are here live. So if you're watching the replay recording, or you're watching this if I put it on YouTube, this does not apply. But for those of you who are here in real time, and you'll see why that is in a little bit later. So if you haven't been on this platform before, I've just seen one or two names that I haven't recognized, but overall, I think most of you have, and you've already found. Andrew says, "I still get mesmerized by your work." Thank you very much. So do I, actually. I'm like, wow, this is amazing in terms of, just kind of discovering and going deeper with things. So in terms of how to submit your questions and feedback, there's the public chat, which is where you can see some of those comments. And then there is, oh gosh, I hope it's someone said it's signal still unstable. You keep dropping off. I do hope it's sorted itself out now. And then, so we've got the public chat where you can see those comments. And then if you look, so we've got 2 arrows at the top. It says chat in one, that's public. Next to it, it says Q&A. So if there's anything you want to say privately, that comes just to me, and nobody else gets to next to see that. And absolutely, as Andrew said, it's up in the chat. It's next to the Q&A. So you can either be public about it, or you can send it privately in the Q&A. So in terms of what we're covering today, we're going to take a whistle-stop tour in terms of 2 or 3 slides, in terms of what is quantum entanglement. This is not, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physicist. I'm just going to give you the very basic breakdown version. So what is quantum entanglement in a nutshell? Number 2, why the remote experiment? Number 3, we're going to go through these amazing results and show you people's results in their own words. Number 4, we're going to look at the modalities for creating the remote quantum transformations that we've been talking about already. We're going to look at the modalities for doing that. Number 5, going to give you a sneak peek into the quantum entanglement online workshop. So we're going to do some quantum alchemy, as I'm calling it. Number 6, we're going to have an experiential Huna session to get the ball rolling energetically, because I think that's going to be a really nice setup for the 24-hour scalar energy field piece. After that, we're going to do a little bit about myself, what I do, etc. Actually, no, I've shifted that now. We're going to just put that into the workshop taste a bit, because I might pull that out as a standalone for people who did the first iteration of this workshop, because the bit you can see in red where it says additional taster, the workshop taster, I didn't do that in the first webinar. So what I'm going to do is do that as almost like a standalone module, so I can then edit that, just that last chunk, and send it out to people. And we've got a live Q&A and next step. So of course, if you've got questions as we go through, add them into the chat or into the Q&A. And then there's some of the questions that had previously come in, and I kind of added a couple more that people had when they were kind of thinking about this webinar. So number 1, quantum entanglement in a nutshell, what's also known as spooky action at a distance. So quantum entanglement, basically the phenomenon is you get 2 particles, such as a pair of protons, electrons. If you separate them, they are still what you call entangled, as they remain connected even when separated, and they can be separated by vast distances, as in London to Australia. So that's the premise. So you got these 2. They were, first of all, they were at one part, then you separate them out. If you rotate, move, vibrate this one here, this one, even at vast distances, will do exactly the same. So that's the basic premise. And that little explanation comes from the Caltech Science Exchange website. But I like the way they summarize. I'm like, that will do very nicely. Thank you very much. Don't mind if I do. Saves me having to reword it. So that's the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, where you can something can be separated, but there can still be a connection between them, even across distances. Now, the reason it's often referred to as spooky action at a distance, is because that's what Albert Einstein said. He was the one who coined the phrase because he could see what was happening, but he couldn't explain it. So he just said it was spooky. And so that kind of stuck. And so people who work in this field, you might see that phrase around, and that's where it comes from. Now, Nikola Tesla, depending on your areas, your interests, I'm kind of guessing that if you're here watching this, you might have come across at least Tesla's name, some of his work. But Nikola Tesla called the energy that we're working with radiant energy. He said it was primal force energy in the universe and was described as standing energy or universal waves. And the thing that was exciting about that prospect, it can be transmitted without loss. So if we go back to thinking about quantum entanglement and that whole thing about vast distances, very much similar to what Tesla is saying, it can be transmitted without loss. And what that means is without loss of power. And one of the things that, I mean, it's a bit sad, it's the whole conversation for another day, but Tesla said using scalar energy, he had figured out how everyone on the planet could have free energy because it's all around us. And he made the mistake of talking to the steel giants and the people who were selling energy. And lo and behold, those studies were not funded. And when he died, though, all that paperwork disappeared. As I said, that's a conversation for another day. But he was looking at this energy and he figured out how you can transmit this. So what we're doing here is using that same principle, transmitting this without loss of power to people who are taking part in the experiment around the world. So the remote experiment, why I did it and how it was done. A couple of years ago, for health reasons, I started looking deeper into cellular healing. Always been interested in it. Started looking into it in the mid-1980s and really had to get focused on it in the 1990s when I was subject to a medical treatment that went wrong. And then they just cut me off and left me out to dry. So I had to start looking into, oh my God, what can I do to save myself? So I've been interested in this for several decades. What's that? 30, 40 years now, something like that. But more recently, I started looking into cellular. That led me back to looking at quantum energy. Then I came across the scalar waves. Then I came across what you call the cold lasers, started using those. They made a massive difference. After a while, I'd say for the first 2 or 3 months, I'm like, man, what am I doing? I'm just like putting this thing on my body. And you just use it. It just, the cycle, it runs for 4 minutes. It's not very long. It's very, very fast, which I'm going to, why I'm going to use, why I'm kind of fell in love with it. Because I'm like, oh, it's quick transformation and it's effortless, because I could just be sitting watching TV or Netflix or listening to a podcast or watching a webinar or even asleep, because you can extend the time for 20 minutes and you just place it somewhere on the body and just leave it there. I'm like, cool, what's not to like? But it took a few months for it really to kind of ramp up. And then I started blending that with my Huna. And then, of course, the thing that happened next was, ooh, I wonder what would happen if. I started using this type of energy with my clients around the world. And that's really how all of my workshops and programs have started over the years. But it was another one of those. So I then went out and I said to people, okay, what's going on for you? If you were going to do something like this, would you want to work on the physical body in terms of your physical health, or would you be working on mental, emotional, spiritual health? So kind of basically split in. I know there's a lot more complexity between the two, but I split it into those two camps. And then I was asking, okay, where people say, so physical health, and then one of the questions I said, okay, is it having if what you've just said you'd like to work on, is it having a negative impact on your life? 76.3% of the people who filled out the survey said it was, yes, it was having a big negative impact. And 75% of people who filled in the survey said they had stuff going on with their physical health. And then 12.5% of people said actually physical and emotional. But imagine that, of the people that took part, 76% of them are carrying something either physically, spiritually, emotionally, or mentally that is having a big negative impact on their life. That is a massive number. And I was like, whoa, I've definitely got to see what we can do here. So the remote experiment was a series of remote energy sessions. Now it changed several times. First of all, I thought, well, let's just put everyone in the scalar energy field. So that was like, yay, let's do it. And then, so I said, I'm going to do this experiment. I'm going to put you in the scalar energy field. I think it was like 37 or 47 pounds. It was like minimal because I thought, I don't even know if it's going to work. So can't really be charging people too much. It was just a little bit towards the equipment and a little bit towards my time. So it was kind of, so that was by the by. But people signed up. And then once they signed up, they get an email a couple of days later going, actually, change your mind. We're going to do this instead. And a couple of days later, they go, actually, I've changed my mind. And so it went from, I'm just going to put people in the scalar energy field to, oh, I wonder what would happen if I started running some harmonics as well. I wonder what will happen if I run the molecular as well. And so it then gradually started expanding. So what we ended up doing is people were in the scalar energy field, both as a group, and then everybody had individual time. Brought in the Rife frequencies. I'll explain a little bit more about these as we go through in a minute. Use the molecular frequencies and the imprinting. Of course, the Huna, that's been a firm favorite since 24 plus years. And then we did remote generator transmissions. So it kind of grew and expanded. And this is what finally then became the program. I went from everyone's going to have a group and then you're going to have a day to everyone had 7 dedicated days, and the remote program, day 1, 12 hours in the pure scalar energy field. Day 2, we had a break. I didn't tell people why we were having a break, but I suspected that people might feel a bit tired or even like, oh, zonked, because we're moving and shifting. I didn't say that to anyone. I just said, we're just having a break to let you get used to the field. And sure enough, people then email and go, oh my God, I was so tired after day 1. One person said they slept until 3 o'clock in the afternoon after that first day. So I was like, phew. But the reason I didn't tell people, I didn't want to influence them in any way. So all they got was this list. That's all I said to people. And I thought, I don't want to say anything else. You tell me what you're noticing. So day 3, another 12 hours in the scalar energy field. Day 4, we did the Huna energy clearing. All of this is remote, so I'm doing all the work from here at the back end. People are just living their lives. Day 5, we did the molecular scalar. So for people who sent the nail clippings, they went into the remote, what we call the remote generator. And for others, I did something else with those. Day 6 was 12 hours back in the energy field, and day 7 was doing a bit of a scan, bit of review, because people were sending me emails throughout. So I was then making adjustments to the frequencies, etc. I think I've got it. Sorry, there was a bit of fluff. I could see it. It's like magnified when it's on your eyelash. So that was basically what we did in terms of the program, and everyone had 7 days. I was using frequencies. So I would say to people, what do you want to work on? So somebody sent me an email. All it said was osteoporosis, hip pain. That was it. So I then went to the frequency generator. You can see that on the screen at the moment. And I went to the osteoporosis, joint pain, hip pain, There's 60,000 programs. 60,000 frequencies. So it's a lot. And so you've got to be very specific in what you're looking for. So that's a bit that takes actually quite a lot of time. It could take a good hour and a half to really sift through those. And then what I was doing is building individual programs based on what people wanted to work on. So this is just an example of what it looks like for the person who said osteoporosis, hip pain. And then I left they sent me a nail clipping. So I left that in the remote generator for 234 hours. You can do the math on that one in terms of number of days. So having just heard that little taster, where are you at? Because people then go, oh, it's really interesting. But then their little reasons go, well, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about this. So some of the common ones that people have said, it might be that you're feeling excited and you're also wondering how on earth such a thing can be possible. Can you really have change and transformation without having to do anything? Could that be possible? When I say without having to do anything, they had to send me an email, and some people put nail clippings in the post. But aside from that, there's nothing else they had to do. They just basically got on with their day. Other people are going, I'm intrigued because you've never heard of this combination or seen this kind of approach before, and you've not had an opportunity to experience for yourself. But you might really be thinking, can it really happen from anywhere in the world? So that's the second thing that's been most common. And then people are like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. I've been wishing and hoping for something like this. And the kind of motivators kind of go, okay, let's do it. So one of the things I would definitely say is dare to dream. and allow your imagination to soar, because those of you who are here live, you're going to have some fun in the scalar energy field for 24 hours, and I'll explain at the end how that happens. So the first thing I would say, a bit of an invitation, can you imagine what it would feel like if you simply said yes, Y-E-S, or oui in France, if you simply said yes to change and transformation the easy way? That's the first thing. Just kind of go, am I up for that? And just start letting that percolate as we go through. So our route map, we're going to look at the remote results, and you're going to see what people said in their own words. We're going to whiz through those. Going to let you see the equipment that we actually used in terms of what we were doing. We'll have a little bit of a sneak peek into the Quantum Entanglement online workshop. We're going to do the experiential session, and then there's that, we'll do the Q&A, and then we've got that bonus session coming up. We're going to take you through a series of, I think it's 6 or 7 exercises from what I'm thinking of in terms of the opening of that workshop. What I really want to do is gauge the time. What's enough time for you to complete the exercise, do the work, etc. So we'll run through that at the end, and then we'll do the piece in terms of the prep for having 24 hours in the scalar energy field and using the harmonic frequencies. So the results. The blog again is bit.ly/remote-quantum-results, because this is just a very quick snapshot. I put it into bullet points, but when you go to that blog, I just basically cut and paste what people said. I made a few tweaks and changes, so you couldn't identify the person if you read it, but it's in their own words. The only thing is I've done, if somebody says, oh, don't put that bit in, or can you take that sentence out, but it's as is as they sent it to me. So case study 1, low energy motivation. Before, low energy, finding it difficult and challenging to focus at work, procrastination, lack of creativity. After their 7 days in the scalar energy field, they said their body is getting thirsty a lot, and which I think is really good news, because many people, and actually that's a good point, cheers. The holographic sticker decided to come and say hello as well. But many people are dehydrated, they don't even know it, and that can be the source of so much that's going on in people's lives. They said they suddenly felt the desire. Oh my God, it's the ice cream van. Sorry. They said they desire, this time of year, they said they felt the desire to exercise and move their body. And that's the first time that's happened in ages for them. And they said also, which was really fantastic, they started to notice increased synchronicities. And for me, synchronicities are like those universal nods from the universe that you're in flow and you're on the right track. So that was very cool. Case study number 2. Sorry, it's a little bit small because the more you add the bullets, the more condensed it gets, but I wanted to keep it all on one page. Before, extreme tiredness, sleep, poor sleep, sleeping about maybe 4-5 hours a night. They were taking medications that was causing them to have a full bladder, so they're waking up every 2 hours to use the bathroom, and slow or no progress on their own business. After the experiment, they said the first, actually, if I take myself, I don't know if it's going to make it bigger for you, but if I take my camera off. Also, for those of you who are here live, if you look on the top right, you'll see 2 arrows. It says full. And if you hit that, what it does, it will open up the screen for you and it gets larger. So this one says first day of the experiment, they slept until 3 p.m. because they've worked with me before. So like, I think I'm going to take a day off. So they took a day off and they were really glad that they did. So they slept until 3 p.m. So that second day where we were having a break, they slept until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They said the second day they went into London for a few hours and they did not need to use the bathroom or the WC. For someone who is going to the bathroom every 2 hours, that is a major achievement. They said their energy levels started to improve, and most noticeable improvement was not waking up every 2 hours to use the bathroom. They had better bladder control. They said they're working on their business, taking inspired action. They felt the effects of the energy, knew something was happening in the background, and they've also had several out of the blue unexpected things happen. So again, an example of that wonderful synchronicity where things start to line up and fall into place. Number 3, case study number 3, kidney function tired. So they said they were having kidney problems, extreme tiredness, and feeling like they've been hit by a bus. After we started the experiment, on the first night of the experiment, they said they slept really well for the first time in ages. They said their energy feels good. They said the word they would use to describe it is flowy. I really like that word. You remind me of the night, if you used to do the wave back in the day, depending on your age. So they said it feels good and flowy. Day 5, they said they were still sleeping well. At the end of it, they said the best way they can describe it is they're feeling cleaner. And when I ran this webinar a couple of days ago, the first of the lives, I was like, actually, that's a really good way to describe it, because your kidneys are all about cleansing. They are what help flush the system. So that was really fantastic. And they said they felt less fuzzy in the head. So when I had all of the scientific experiments that people have done, and I put in red, one of the things there was about mental clarity, for example. So that was number 3. Case study number 4, and this is one I've talked about a fair bit on social media, so you might have seen some of those posts. They just said hip pain, osteoporosis. That was it. That's all they said they wanted. That's what they sent me in the email. I was like, oh, cool, we'll go from there. After the experiment, so they said there was a definite reduction in hip pain when walking, reduction in the pronounced limping. They walked up the stairs without holding onto the handrail. So all of what I've just said to you was by day 4 of the 7-day experiment. They then said the following weekend, they took to the dance floor at their grandchildren's school fair, and they did the Candy dance. Now, Candy is a song by Cameo. It's like candy, I can feel it when you walk, feel it. And it's quite a fast tune. And the Candy dance, so hop, skip, jump, turn, hop. So if you've ever seen, you can search Candy Cameo on YouTube. And if you search for the Candy dance, you'll see people doing it. It's like a soulful version of a line dance. And she said, I did the Candy dance not once, but twice. And the second time, she did the fast jungle version. Now, jungle is a genre of movie. So you got rap, rock and pop, hip hop, jazz. Jungle is a genre of dance music, and it's fast. That's what it's known for. She did that not once, but twice. That was in the 2nd week. And then she said she listened to because I did everyone a bespoke Huna recording. And she said on the day 7, she listened to the Huna recording and she just felt really calm and had tears of joy running down her face. I actually haven't added it. I'll see if I can do it when we have a little bit of a break. But last week when I was out in Canada, she sent me the letter from her consultant confirming her diagnosis, which is severe osteoporosis in the hip. They use the word severe. And she sent me the letter from her consultant. She said, I can share it. I've just grayed out, anything that would describe, identifies the consultant, but it's on their headed paper. She also sent me a video of her doing the Candy dance. I'm not allowed to share it. It was just for my eyes only. But if she hadn't have told me what she was wearing, I would have had no idea which one was her, because everyone was like, and I was like, oh God, I couldn't tell the difference. It was fantastic. Imagine all she did was she sent me the nail clippings, sent me those 3 words in the email, and then just got on with the rest of her life. So when I talk about ease, I'm really not kidding. Number 5, grief and loss. So this person said they're suffering and grieving the loss of business and connection during COVID. That's what they said. I put insomnia in brackets because they didn't say anything about insomnia. In terms of the results, and you definitely want to go to the blog and read this one because it's like an essay, which is fantastic. So much detail. Really thank you to everyone who took part and shared your feedback. So she says, okay, where to start? Massive realization on day 2 of the experiment that I've been spiritually capped and cut off in terms of their spiritual connection. And they work in a spiritual field, so that's a big deal for them. They said, I got the message on day 3 of the experiment, which is the Wednesday, that they had been uncapped. So it's like, we're flowing again. She said, started changing direction in my business. A book I've been trying to write for years is now flowing. There's that word again. We had flowy, now we've got flowing. They said there are early small signals of people wanting to work with them. So regaining that sense of connection. I have access to higher guidance once more. I know who I am. I can channel again. I'm back. And then they said, I listened to the Huna recording on the Sunday night, which was day number 7. Nod to Len Goodman, Strictly Come Dancing, Dancing with the Stars. That's another story for another day. So she said, they said, I've listened to the Huna recording on the Sunday night, and I've slept through the night every night since. What I didn't know is that they have been suffering with insomnia, got goosebumps. They have been suffering with insomnia for 3.5 years. And they said this is the first time that they've just slept through the night. Isn't that incredible? That's absolutely, that is freaking mind-blowing. So when I'm talking about distance, ease, effortless, I think this has got to be right up there. I haven't come across anything yet in terms of this type of combination that has garnered these kind of results within a couple of days. That's, well, I think it's amazing. Of course, I'd say that it's my experiment, but hopefully you think it's amazing too. So number 6, because 6 people took part, muscle stiffness and eyesight. The reason I grayed out the eyesight is that when they sent me this feedback, I hadn't done anything with the eyesight because I was like, yeah, cool, eyesight. And then we got started and I went to the frequency generator to then add the programs in. And there were like thousands, ocular this, molecular degeneration, myopia. And I was like, oh my God. I said, okay, can you get back to me and let me know what specifically we're dealing with? Just tell me short-sighted, long-sighted. That would be a great start. They were away, so they didn't answer. So all I did was a bit about the muscle stiffness. So their feedback was Monday to Thursday, day 1 and day 4, they were extra tired, as I'd suspected people would be. By Friday, day 5 of the experiment, they said, I feel like I recovered. Saturday and Sunday, which was day 6 and day 7, it was a 7-day experiment. They said attended 2 full-day events with better energy and enthusiasm. So they did a full-day event on the Saturday, a full-day event on the Sunday. Now, what was really interesting about this, because I said they were thinking about muscle stiffness of the body, but they also started to have more flow in terms of their personality, let's put it that way. They said, I usually have more mediocre small talk. They're not a fan of small talk, networking, all that sort of stuff. However, I felt more comfortable than usual talking to people I don't know. So there's that sense of flow again. They said generally feeling better physically, and my muscle tone has loosened up more, which is amazing. They said read the eyesight. I'm not noticing anything different. My eyes are still blurry in the morning. And then I went back to them and I said, that's because we haven't done anything with the eyesight. Check your email. Can you let me know what we're dealing with here? And then it turned out, because they've written me a letter, I just went into it to get, I knew what was in the letter because I said, send me your request, etc. But they also sent an email. So I actually hadn't looked at the letter. Then I opened the letter and I was like, oh my God, there's more detail in there. But at that point, I hadn't seen it. And so I only worked on the muscle stiffness bit. But that gives you a bit of a flavor. And again, this is what it looks like without the image. When I call up the program, so I'm in the, I'll be in the programs tab. I will type in, what does this one say? It's actually really tiny. Hold on, let me do that for myself. So it's okay. This one's controversial. I was just curious. So I was looking at, because somebody said they had a cold. So I was looking up influenza, but I put in the word strain. And then it brought up a load of stuff about COVID, loads. It says strain DNA, current strains, protein, and the DNA. Seriously, there was just loads of stuff. And then it went into what I was asking for with regards to the influenza. But there were I didn't expect actually anything to be in there for that, but it was interesting. But yeah, so that's an example when I say I was then setting up the frequencies and the programs. So that's our quick whistle stop tour through the case studies. As I said, you can read more details on the blog. I'm going to add the further updates. I will go and add the consultant's letter about the severe osteoporosis as well. So keep an eye on that, www.bit.ly/remote-quantum-results. So with all of that said, how did we do it? Oh, very funny. I can hear Mom tell Jordan now, this is how we do it. I've got a jukebox in my head for those of you who've worked with me before. So for the quantum entanglement remote experiment, this is what we actually did. First thing I'm going to say, I use this in pretty much all of my workshops, whether it's a personal development workshop or I'm designing and delivering a corporate training. I've had this slide in project management trainings, leadership development workshops, communication skills, accounting for non-financial managers, you name it, this slide probably appears 80–90% of the time. But it's something that I was taught when I went out into Hawaii to study Hawaiian Huna. And it said, think not that all wisdom is in your school. And what that means is you might think the thing you're doing is the best thing since sliced bread. It's not the be all and end all. There will be other ways that you can do this. So what I'm sharing with you is the way that I have done this and the way that I have used the equipment. I'm pretty certain, because a lot of the times when I learn a new modality, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I wonder what would happen if, and then I do stuff with it that the creators of it hadn't even thought of. And I know that to be true because I'm often in connection. I often train with the people who created the modality. So I'll go back to them and go, hey, have you done this before? And they're like, no, but let me know how you get on, which is great because I love working with open-minded people who are up for playing. So this is probably another of those times. So if you're in what we call the Spooky 2 community, you probably won't see the stuff that I'm talking about done in the way that I'm doing it. And that's the nature of the experiment. I was like, wonder what will happen if you do this. And I hadn't seen anyone else doing it. So I was like, let me give it a go. So we're going to look at the 6 strategies, modalities that I use. Number 1, scalar energy. Number 2, Rife frequencies. Number 3, molecular frequencies. Number 4, harmonic frequencies. Number 5, the Huna. We've talked a bit about that. And number 6, the radionics imprinting, which is what phase 2 is happening right this second, a couple of inches away from where I'm sitting. So modality number 1 is scalar energy. And we've got what you kind of, well, we'll talk about that in a few moments. But in this instance, we're using what we call pure scalar energy. So you see there are 2 transmitters. They actually look like black briefcases. If you've ever watched like a James Bond movie and they've got these big black cases, they actually, because they got handles on so you can carry them like cases, you know, about so big. So you've got the 2 cases. They're called they're the transmitters. You've got a transmitter and a receiver, and they are backing each other. And then the scalar energy runs between them. So when I was doing the name imprinting, that's what I used. I put people in between the 2 boxes into the scalar energy field. And the scalar energy, see where I've got the little smiling person, the boxes were backing each other. And then the person that I was working with was in the middle of the scalar energy field where you see our little smiling cartoon. So that's modality number 1, scalar energy. Now, in terms of the scalar energy, it has different components. You can have pure scalar, which is what we're using between the boxes. You can have the Rife frequencies, which we use a frequency generator. You'll see that in a moment. You can do the molecular, or you can do the harmonic scalar. And I'm going to just very quickly tell you about those. So modality number 2, Rife frequencies. Using a frequency generator popularized by someone called Royal Raymond Rife, hence called Rife frequencies. There are 60,000 frequencies in the database that I'm using. And I'm using what you call the Generator X Pro. Now, when I first got back into frequencies a few years ago, this is the book that I used. Let me show you the book. Don't all rush out and buy it if you're not interested in frequencies. This is basically what it looks like. It's just lists and lists and lists and lists and lists of different frequencies. So I've opened it at random. So let's, oh, you're not going to believe this. Let me see if you can see it. I'm going to put my finger there. This is a bit spooky. It opened randomly on the page, which is also the first thing I saw is coronavirus SARS. I just truly opened that at random. So if you were interested in that, let's say, then the frequency, one of the frequencies for that, for SARS-2, is 779.5. Let's just say what we got here: bladder cancer, Gulf War syndrome, influenza, lupus, parasites, yeast, cervical. That's frequency 771. The reason I got this is with the handheld personal lasers that I was using, they came with, I think it's 11 preset frequencies: quantum, Pleo, relax, regenerate, etc. But there's also an option where you can program frequencies in. I'm like, well, cool, but I don't know what the frequencies are. And so I ordered this book. It's called the Herbalism Frequency List by Brian McInturf and McInturff. Given that we've been giving other people shout outs, let's go all the way. So that's the book that I purchased so I could set some frequencies. And then what, two or so years later, came across what I'm talking to you about now. But frequencies galore. So there's hundreds, thousands in that book, and there are 60,000 in this database. And what you can see there, the piece of kit you can see is called the Generator X Pro. In terms of number 3, molecular. So the molecular uses the Gen X, as they call it, but you have this thing called the remote, and the remote is that little black box that you can see. I can't show it to you at the moment because it's actually on the generator. As I look at it now, the lights are flashing because I'm running a frequency through that with someone's nail clippings in it. But this is where we get into the DNA piece, the spooky action at a distance, because the principle is, those who sent me the nail clippings, they went into that black box. We can see the red arrow saying nail clippings. I then choose the frequencies of the things they want to work on. So let's say the osteoporosis, hip pain. The frequencies run from the generator into the remote. They impact what's in there, which is the nail clippings in this case. You can use hair follicles, but actually it's much easier than say someone send me a nail clipping. If you use the hair follicle, you've got to pull the hair out at the root and you've got to get the bulb. I'm like, that's far too complex for people. Send me a nail clipping. So the nail clipping goes in there. We run the frequency through the nail clipping, and the frequency then affects, let's go back to the quantum entanglement, the frequency affects the owner of the nail clipping. And that's how this works. So when you talk about the spooky action at a distance, and so I'm running the frequencies. Now, the URL you can see on there is my affiliate link for a company called Spooky2. So if you ever think I'm going to buy some of this kit, please feel free to use my affiliate link, because that means it funds purchasing some of the equipment that I use to run the, because trust me charging 37 or 47 pounds was a drop in the ocean, because this kit was like £3,500. There's no comparison in terms of what I was charging and what it cost to run the kit. And I've still got to add more if I want to work with more people at the same time. So I'll say the URL, and of course it's here on the screen, but it's www.spooky, S-P-O-O-K-Y, so spooky2, the number 2, dash mall, MALL.com/REF/811. So spooky2-mall.com/ref811. Feel free to use that. Things actually, no, I was going to say the price remains the same for you. I don't think it does actually. Normally you'll get like, I think they like 3 or 5% depending on what they're doing at the time. So you often get a bit of a discount when you use someone's link, but even if you don't, the price will be the same for you in terms of people generally just Googling them. But what it means is I get some points that I can put towards buying new equipment. So as they say on the Tesco ad, every little helps. Modality number 4 is the harmonic frequencies. Oh, he says that spooky link doesn't work. I will drop it into, oh, he says, oops, typo. Sorry, it came, and if I hadn't seen it arriving, I would have gone, did I just imagine that? Because it then just that text disappeared, so you might have deleted it. What I'll do is I'll drop it into the chat. So modality number 4, harmonic frequencies. So what I did is I used the scalar energy boxes that you can see there, the black boxes. And this is how I did one of the rounds of the name imprinting. And that little thing that looks like the Starship Enterprise, where the red arrow is across it, that's a harmonic frequency generator. So what happens is that plugs into the transmitter. You then load up or access frequencies in terms of sound frequencies. And what it does is it runs, and it sounds a bit complex now as I'm saying it out loud, but it runs the sound frequencies through the scalar energy generator, and then those frequencies get imprinted into or impact whatever's on the harmonic plate. So in this case, that's somebody's name. You can see in the corner, there's some frankincense oil. So what you can do is you can add oils and essences into the frequency field. Some people have added vitamins and all of that sort of stuff. And I have to say at this point, because I haven't said it yet, it has been on a couple of the slides, but just to be absolutely clear, we, myself, Spooky, etc., we're not making any healing claims. We're not making any medical claims. We're not making any financial claims. Let's just say all this stuff is for entertainment purposes only. And of course, people's results will vary. So the first 6 people, those are the results. I have no idea what will happen with the next round of experiments, but just to make that clear, but what we can do is we can run sound frequencies, harmony, hence the harmonics, and we can add frequencies then within the scalar energy field. We've already talked a bit about Huna. One of the things I love about Huna, a bit like the frequency generators, it's quick and it's fast, and people don't have to understand what's going on. And years ago, this was probably 6 or 7 years ago now, I've just come back from emceeing their event in Canada, but this was the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. It's an annual event that typically runs in London, but they branched out now. So they ran it for the first time in Canada about 2 weeks ago. So I flew out there and I did the same hosting and emceeing. So you've got on the stage Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and the lovely Dr. Bruce Lipton. So if you're in the personal development field, you may have heard of them. And I did just 2 minutes of Huna one day. I was just about to go on stage to introduce the next speaker. I was going to introduce Lynn McTaggart. The organizer of the event said, hey, we just found out that people from Grenfell Towers are downstairs. Now, Grenfell Towers was a fire that happened, a tower block fire that happened in London a few years ago. And there was some sort of weird cladding on it, which meant it was extremely flammable, so should not have been on the building. And people were trapped in that building. So very traumatic for the people who survived, and even traumatic for those of us watching it on TV. And the survivors were in the room downstairs. So he said, can you do something for Grenfell, like a meditation or something? And my foot is on the stage. I was like, okay. So I'm in front of everyone. I said, hey, before I introduce the next speaker, can I just have like 2 or 3 minutes of your time? And I explained it because people flying from all over the world. So I explained what happened. I just did like 2 minutes of Huna. They didn't even know what I was doing. And I just said, if you're open to receiving it, you can receive the energy too. However, the intention is we, send the energy, send those vibes to the people downstairs. Mind blowing. I couldn't then walk 2 steps for the next 3 days without somebody coming and going, oh my God, I don't know what you were doing on stage. And then they will tell me this story about, they had this pain and it disappeared, or they were tired and now they're awake, and all sorts of wonderful things. As I've just put a few of the little speech bubbles on for people who haven't come across this before. So first one says, thank you so much for everything, the Huna, and how beautifully you held the energy of the room and managed everything. Someone else said, I attended the 4-day TCCHE event a couple of weeks ago, and although I found the speakers fascinating, your Huna work had the most profound effect on me. And they said, I did speak to an event in the ladies because people were just stopping me everywhere. And I was in the cubicle at the time, and they're talking over the top of the cubicle, and explained how I felt the energy around me, a sense of calm. But since that time, I'm amazed at what has happened. And again, the same thing that happened with Pippa. People had no idea what I was doing, but they're saying, hey, when you started, I felt like I was under a waterfall. And I'd started with water energy. Yeah, and at one point, I felt like somebody just put a cloak around me. I did the symbol with the cloak of light. So again, they had exactly the same thing as Pippa, you listening to the audio MP3, and they were kind of sitting in that room. And we've already kind of talked about Pippa. So modality number 6 is what we call the radionics imprinting. So what you're looking at is the radionics plate. This was a new one on me, actually. I've sort of heard of the term, never really looked at it. But when I got into the scalar energy, didn't take long once I started researching, okay, what can you do with this kit remotely? And how does this work? And how does that work? And eventually that led me to radionics and imprinting. I was like, ooh, this sounds good. And the idea of the radionics is you have something on the input plate, something on the output plate. And think of it like homeopathy, where you can, in this case, I used a glass of water, but I could have the homeopathy oil. For me, I had the lid on, and I can transfer the essence of the homeopathy, or in my case, the aromatherapy oil, into the water. So that's the basic premise and principle. When I first got the kit, opened it up, had a quick look at the PDF handbook, and I was straight in to do an experiment. I was like, oh, I wonder what happens if I get my oregano on. I chose oregano because it's a really strong taste. So I put what you sort of say, there's the intent and the receiver. So I'm intending that the oregano oil magically jumps over and ends up in the glass of water. That was the experiment. So what you do with this one, there are no frequencies. You can program frequencies in, but essentially to use the plate, you use a dowsing rod, and there are 3 dials. You can see those 3 dials, and they're 0 to 10. And what you do is you use a dowsing rod. So that's a dowsing rod you can see in the picture. And what you do is you douse for the frequency of each of those. So you get your typical, show me a yes, show me a different direction for no. And then what you're doing with each of the dials, you're turning the dial and you're dousing until you get the right number. So it might be, dial number 1. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? And then eventually it's going to react to the number. And then you do the same again with the second dial. You do the same again with the third dial. So this isn't relying on frequencies, programs, generators. This is relying on you, the operator. And that's why you need a real clear intention of what it is you want to do. And then you douse for the right frequencies. So what I use is structured magnetic water. So I put the water on one side of the plate, put the aromatherapy oil. As you see it there, the lid was on, just as it is. And then I just left it for 20 minutes. And then it came back, got the water, had a swig. Nothing really happened. I was like, okay. And then a few seconds later, my lips started tingling. And then my tongue was tingling. I could taste the oregano oil. My lips were tingling a good hour later. They tingled for about 70 minutes, so just over an hour. And Rachel, the person who sold me that aromatherapy oil, her name is Rachel CK, and she does the doTERRA oils. If we're doing shout outs today, we might as well go all in. So Rachel CK, she does doTERRA oils. And because I shared that picture on Facebook saying, what kind of magic is this? OMG. She said, Marilyn, why on earth did you use oregano oil? It's one of the strongest. And I said, that's exactly why I used it. Because number one, I know what it tastes like. So I would know if I was tasting the oregano oil, which if I used something that I had no concept of what it tastes like, I wouldn't have been as clear in terms of had there been a result. So that was my first ever radionics experiment a few minutes after I took the plate out of the box. And that's what we're using for what we call the manifestation protocol. So one of the things my next phase of it, so phase 1 of the experiment was getting the 6 volunteers and saying, hey, what do you want to work on? Phase 2 is what we call the manifestation protocol, where I'm asking clients, what do you want to create and generate and manifest? So they all sent me a statement. I then put that onto the radionics plate. And what I'm doing with that is I'm imprinting what they want into, I don't know if you can hold on, let's see. And then these are all pendants. So that means that people can wear the pendant or they can just carry the crystal around. And hold on. And I'm also imprinting into the holographic stickers. And these stickers have been Hunified, not because I created them. The company Spooky 2, they created these, but they say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And for those of you who have heard me talk about Huna, there's what I call the social media version of Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, where they've created Huna versions of the holographic stickers. So what I'm doing is I'm imprinting what people want to manifest into the crystal, into the stickers. They then get, courtesy of Amazon, they get a gift box. So I then box all of that up, and people then receive the crystal and the holographic stickers in the post. So that's what we're doing. So that's all been with people individually. I was then thinking it might be fun to run a workshop doing the aforementioned. So there were going to be 3 options. There's going to be the silver option where everyone comes to the online workshop. We do the scalar energy name imprinting as a group process. We do the group harmonic frequencies, and then there'll be a group Huna energy clearing. So that's kind of the first option. I was then thinking, okay, let's kind of go in a bit more depth and detail. So online workshop, just everything I've just said, but also there'll be the 24-hour manifestation protocol. Well, that's individual. And then there'll also be the imprinted sticker that you'll receive via post. And then I thought, oh, next level, because all of these take time, it will be the online workshop, the scalar energy name imprinting, the individual harmonic frequency, the group Huna energy clearing, 5 days on the radio. Sorry, I'm pointing there because that's where the radionics plate is sitting on my desk, but 5 days to do the manifestation protocol. So again, that will be individual based on what it is you want to work on. The radionics imprinted crystal, so that goes onto the radionics plate, and that we imprint into that your manifestation statement. So let's just say somebody, I don't know, wants peace of mind and joy, because I know there's a program for joy in the frequency generator. Peace of mind, the frequency for peace of mind and joy gets imprinted into the crystal. And the reason I went for pendants is you can either wear them on a chain, like I have my, of course, this is a slightly bigger pendant, but you can wear them on a chain, or small enough for you to hold, put in a bag, pocket, wallet, purse, handbag, etc. So what you want gets imprinted into the crystal, imprinted into the holographic stickers, and then I'll also do a bespoke Huna and access consciousness clearing and belief change session for you, and you'll receive that as an MP3 recording. So those are the 3 things I'm thinking of. Now, for me, the benefits of kind of doing this kind of work, no travel costs, of course, this is all going to be online, no accommodation required, you'll be at home in your own bed, living your own life, no time required, apart from, you know, come to the workshop if you want, or you'll get the recording, be nice if you came, but no time aside in terms of working on this, aside from sending the email, no effort on your part. I've already explained to you the results of that experiment, so it's kind of effortless. And really, it transcends space and time. So that's kind of the benefit for me of working in this kind of way. And so doing a group workshop and taking it in this direction is phase-free, having tried and tested it out. So I'm going to say, as you're thinking about the next segment that we do, which do you prefer? If you were interested in doing it, would you prefer a one-day workshop? So it'll be using this same webinar platform that we're on now, Big Marker. We're doing shout outs, so Big Marker. Would you prefer 6 shorter 60 to 90 minute modules? So we do a bite-sized piece and then we do another piece. Would you prefer 2 half-day workshops, or you're like, it's what, fine, I'll just do pre-recorded sessions? Now the scalar energy and the frequencies are done in real time, but I'm talking about the delivery of the information and the other processes to support that. So have a little think about it and let me know in the chat comments, or if you're watching this as a replay, ping me an email, Marilyn, Marilyn, at transformationstm.com, TRANCE, F for Freddy, FORMATIONS, TM as in trademark. So Marilyn at transformationstm.com. Ping me an email and you can let me know which you prefer, as I think about the kind of, oh, hang on, my Q&A light is on. Give me 1 second. 2 or 3. So shorter 60 to 90 minute modules, or 2 times half-day workshops. Cool. Thank you very much. So let me know which you prefer and we can go from there. So let's have a quick sneak peek at the new Quantum Entanglement remote workshop. Then we'll do the Q&A. We're going to do a Huna Experiential, and we're also going to do some of the taste exercises. I think we might even have a quick 10-minute break before we get into the kind of the Huna bit. So you're invited. If you do, I've said 1 day here, that was just me thinking. So Andrew says 1, 2 or 3. So it's just me thinking out loud, but I've said it's going to be 1 day depending on how we split it. The 3 segments, this is how it would basically break down in terms of the kind of top level stuff. So the live workshop, silver, gold, VIP, in terms of those 3 options. Group scalar energy will be all, the name imprinting will be all, the harmonics will be everyone. Where it gets different is the imprinted stickers, that'll be for the gold and VIP. 24-hour radionics for the gold, and then 5-day radionics manifestation protocol for the VIP. The radionics imprinted crystal is for the VIP, the bespoke energy and Huna energy and access consciousness is for the VIP, and the individual sessions in the scalar energy field and the harmonics would be for the VIP. So that's basically the way that it breaks down. Now, if you're watching this as a replay, these prices are probably changed by the time it gets onto the social media platforms, if I put this on YouTube, etc. But at the moment that I'm doing it, it's £67 for the silver, sorry, dollars for the silver, $97 for the, that's US dollars for the gold, and the VIP is $197. As a thank you bonus for those of you who are here live, there's a coupon code that you can do, which is valid at the moment. It's going to expire shortly. It's Quantum Web 20. Quantum Web 20 is all one word, and that will take 20% off. What I'll do is it's marilyndevonish.thrivecart.com/quantum-entanglement-remote-workshop. Bit of a mouthful. I'll drop that into the comments as well. But if you use that coupon code, it's 20% off. So it'll be $54 for the silver, $78 for the gold, and $158 for the VIP. So that's basically a little bit of a breakdown of what we've got coming. And with the equipment that I've shown you previously, with the exception of the nail clipping bit, what we call the molecular, we'll be doing all of the other stuff with the scalar energy field, the remote kind of scalar energy, the harmonic frequencies, and using, depending on the kind of level that we're doing, the radionics plate and the imprinting as well. So that's a little bit of an overview. There's also going to be a second bonus for those of you who are here live, and that's going to be 24 hours in the remote scalar energy field. So we're going to have a remote scalar energy party. That's going to run for 24 hours. So similar to those who took part when I first did the experiment, we'll do 12 hours. Then we have a break, and then we'll do another 12 hours in the scalar energy field. So will you send us the link and the coupon code? I will do. Actually, let me do because we know how things run away with themselves on this. Let me just give me 1 second. Right, so let me do that. I'm going to put the link into the chat because it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I think that's the one I'm looking for. So that's that. All right, so I'm going to put that into chat. So that's the link for the workshop. What did I say that code was again? I think I said Quantum Web 20, didn't I? Yeah, let me just type that in. Quantum Web 20. Let me just check my spelling. Quantum Web 20. Right, so that's the link. I've put it into the public chat. I've put that code in there as well. So if you do want to take part, it's in there. And I can also, for those of you watching this as a replay in the next few hours, I can at least send you or actually, if you're just watching this as a replay, I can at least send you the URL if you happen to be watching this outside of that. There we go. Cool. So we're going to have the remote scalar energy party for 24 hours. So we'll talk about that at the end, and I'll tell you how to kind of take part in that. So actually, what I'm going to do, let me just check. What do I want to do now? What time is it? So we started. I'm just having to think. What I might do, I might do the Q&A. I might jump to the Q&A so that we can do have a bit break after that. We can do the Huna experiential and then go into the demo workshop, because I think it might be a nice energy and vibe. You're most welcome. I think it might be a nice energy and vibe. So give me a second. Let me call up my slide navigator. Let me call up my slide navigator. Hold on, let me just move that out of the way. And I'm going to quickly whiz through the Q&A, and then I think we can back to back it. We can just do the Huna experiential, and then we can transition into the demo exercises. And I think that's going to be, for me, it now feels like a nicer way to do it. So let me just call up my slide navigator. Give me a second. I need to locate the slide that we're on, and then I can jump forward from there. Talk amongst yourselves or have a drink of water if you haven't had a drink of water for a while. Okay, so we're on slide that. So let me jump that and go to here. Right, that's what I want to do. There we go. Q&A. Let me quickly run through some questions. So, and if you've got questions about anything I've said thus far, put them into the chat or the Q&A. I'll answer those as well. But a couple of questions we had very quickly. Is this the same as a remote experiment? When is the Quantum Alchemy workshop? Is this different to the Health Activation Day? How do the tools work for the 3-day transformation retreat? Can you overdose on the energy? This wasn't one that came in relation to this workshop. However, it was such a brilliant question from when I first launched this experiment. I've added it in here again. Where can I get updates? And is a quantum alchemy workshop in person? So let's just very quickly, is it different to the remote experiment? Yes-ish. In terms of the remote experiment, everything I did, I mean, we started with a group piece in terms of being group in the scalar energy field, group harmonic energy, and then they were individual sessions. So everyone had 7 days. So it took me 6 weeks to run the whole experiment because everyone had 7 days. With this one, it's let's say, I'm going to say 1 day, whether we split it into smaller modules. It's a 1-day workshop where that's group energy, but then there's the opportunity, depending on the level that you do, to do some individual work. But it's not going to be quite, it's not quite as intense as the 7 days. But we're going to really focus on the manifestation protocol piece. When is the quantum alchemy workshop? There isn't a date as yet. I haven't launched this yet. This is the second time that I'm talking about it in public. So once I've sent this out to my list and then shared it a bit on social media, for those who have signed up in that sort of pre-launch phase that we're in now, I'll agree the date with those people so that if they want to attend the workshop live, they can. And then whatever that date is goes out into the public. Is this different to the Health Activation Day? Yes, it is, because the Health Activation Day is actually in person. So it's going to be running in Watford in the town centre. And I'm going to bring along the things that I've been using. I said when I had those health challenges after the medical treatment went wrong, in the early 90s, it all started going downhill very rapidly. I'm going to use some of the things that I've discovered back then that have been used into this day, and some of the more recent additions. So you can see on the screen the I know Andrew knows about all the water stuff in charging up the water. So that's a hydrogen water creator. So I have the hydrogen water in the room. So we're filling ourselves with things that are good for the body. You can see the block therapy blocks. They're amazing. If you want to do the free online program, is it 9 days? I think it's 9 days completely free. I mean, it's $47, but I've got a link where my clients can do it for free. I highly recommend it. That's a thing when I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in my shoulder and I could barely move my arm. And my doctor had said, either we need to do 12 to 18 months of physio. If the physio doesn't work, they want to move to steroid injections. And if the steroid injections don't work, they want to move, we'll do an operation, which is fantastic to have that available. Because I know people live in countries where you'd be like, yeah, that's going to be $100,000. But for me, I was like, whoa, I don't really want to go down that route. Just coincided with my friend badgering me about block therapy. Hold on, if you go to transformationstm.com/block therapy or /block therapy gift, GIFT, I can drop the links in the comments as well. But I used the block therapy with it, and I literally could not move my arm. That was about the extent of the movement, and I'm left-handed, so it makes a big difference. Within 6 weeks, I would say I was 80% there. Within 8 weeks, I was back to normal, completely back to normal. And that was over 2 years ago. I haven't looked back since. When I went back to see because I wasn't just guessing. I actually, like my client, I went to the hospital and had the x-rays done, and the x-rays came back saying osteoarthritis. So I wasn't just guessing and I think I've got osteoarthritis. I also, of course, went to see my GP before that, and they said they think it's frozen shoulder, but let's just do the x-rays to be sure. And then the x-rays came back saying osteoarthritis. So when I went back to my GP 8 weeks later, and they didn't want to give me the appointment, they said, well, it says on your records you need to do the physio for at least 12 months, probably 18. It's only been 8 weeks. What do you want? And I said, please just tell the physio that I want to speak to her. Tell her Marilyn Devonish wants to speak to her. It will only take 2 minutes. So she took the call. We did it on Zoom, their version of Zoom. And I said, hey, you remember my arm? She's like, yeah. She said, have you started the physio? I said, no, not yet. And I said, so you remember my arm was stiff? And I went like that. She went, yeah. I said, well, her face, it took a second. And she went, and then I put them both in the air. She's like, what did you do if you haven't done any physio? And then I talked to her about block therapy, which literally it takes 3 minutes. And I did it lying in bed watching Netflix 80% of the time. And you just place it in the right places for 3 minutes per position. 8 weeks, I went from barely able to move and in a lot of pain. If it wasn't for the Huna, I would have been bawling my eyes out every day. And yeah, so I'm going to bring the blocks. I might bring the Sun Ancon Chi machine, which I started using in 2004. I'm going to bring the belly button healing, and I'm going to have the scalar energy boxes, the big black briefcases, in the room as well. And so those will be in the room. I'm also going to bring along the laser that you put on your wrist. And these are all, and not that it means that much today, but these are all FDA approved in terms of the cold lasers, etc., that I was using individually. And you just place it on your wrist for 30 minutes. You can wear it while you're in the room. It's called the Wristex cold laser, and it's tapping into the points that you have on the left wrist. So all of that kit is going to be in the room physically for you to use, whereas everything I've been talking about today is remote. Now, one of the questions was, can you overdose on the energy? The way I describe this, if back in the day where you had the old style kettles, you actually have flame, and you put the kettle on the flame, and then when it heats up, there's a little thing in the lid that, and it whistles, and it will just keep whistling until you turn it off, or until you burn a hole in the bottom of that kettle if you go off and forget about it. Whereas modern day kettles now, they hit their boiling point and they shut off. No more power runs through to keep heating the water. They might have a stay warm feature, but that's completely different. It's similar with the frequencies. Once your body has had what it needs, it just goes, thanks for that. And the rest of the frequencies just dissipate. And also, when I was growing up, there was one of the companies was Maxell, for example, but lots of companies introducing their cassette tapes, because back in the day we had cassette tapes, and they moved to metal tapes, and then eventually went to CDs. Got to be a certain age to know what I'm talking about. But there was one particular advert they had, I believe it was Ella Fitzgerald, sitting, playing the piano and singing, and they had a wonderful champagne flute on the top. And then she hits this particular note, and the glass shattered. Now, even if you've never been to a karaoke bar, you probably know what a karaoke bar is. You can have, we can sing karaoke right now in our respective houses. We're not going to shatter the windows. You can have 100 people in a karaoke bar. They're not going to shatter the windows because they're not at that frequency that the glass is vibrating at. When you hit the right frequency, it's like pow. It's like magic. It's exactly the same with the frequency generator, which is why I spend so much time finding the right frequency. Because if it's the wrong, like let's say what you want to work on is here, but the frequency for that is here, they just pass each other, no impact. Or if the frequency, they pass each other, no impact. But when you get the right frequency, that's where you get the change and transformation. But the body has a system that was like, I'm good, thanks very much. So a bit like the shut off for the kettle is exactly the same sort of premise and principle with the human body. In terms of where you can get updates once I do launch, easiest thing I would say, of course, I'm going to share it on social media eventually, but the algorithms are such, I know people, they've said it takes 12 to 14 days for my post to show up, if at all. And I had people when I first launched this experiment saying, oh, I didn't know about it. I would have liked to have taken part. Can I still join? I said, no, we've started now. I've got enough people. Thanks very much. I said, I did share it on social media when I had one place left, but they didn't see it because it just took weeks for it to show up. Easiest way is my e-newsletter. So if you're not already subscribed, go to www.bit.ly.com/ENL sign up. ENL stands for e-newsletter. Or, I'd say bookmark the page, go to transformationstm.com. There's a red watch new button. Click that, a panel will slide out, and you'll see like a calendar of events. However, I haven't updated it for about 6 weeks at this point that I'm talking to you, because I've been about and I've been abroad, I went to Canada, etc. This webinar is on there. So if people didn't see it on social media, the only way they would have gotten invited is through the e-newsletter. So I'd say that's the easiest way. Is the new workshop in person? No, it's remote energy, and the workshop itself will be online. Right, great. So that's that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick, hang on, let me just see. Yeah, we're going to have a quick 5-minute break. So you might want to run to the bathroom, top up your water, which is what I'm going to do. And we'll then do the Huna energy clearing. Then we're going to do the taster for the workshop. And then I'll explain to you how we do the live scalar energy party. Hold on, one sec, my Q&A light is on. Are you going to be doing this again? When you say doing this again, do you mean the workshop? I'm just going to assume that that's what you mean at the moment, but you can comment further in the Q&A. I don't know. Andrew, you know me, you've been around me long enough to know that there are times where I run something. Like I remember I ran a workshop called basically Banish Procrastination. It was amazing. Weirdly, I think it was 3 or 4 people that showed up, and I thought, well, that's ironic, isn't it? It's about procrastination and taking action, and at the end of the day, only 3 or 4 people made it. It was amazing. I never ran it again because I'm like, I've run it now. It's out of my system. I don't need to do it again. And there are so many of those workshops. So I've run them once or twice. I'm like, I'm good. It was amazing. Thanks very much. Next. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean I've run it now. I don't need to keep repeating myself. And of course, with the stuff I do online, it's recorded. But with this one, I don't know. We'll see how we go. I might run it again. I might be in a place and space I go, that was amazing. I don't need to do that again, but thanks everyone for coming to play. So at the moment, I'm not sure. I don't know. Oh, hold on. The other little things come on. What is the 7-day upgrade in the cart? Okay, so yes, the 7-day upgrade in the cart. Oh, you've signed up already. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much. So the 7-day upgrade. Sorry, I've just rolled over my skirt, so I can't move. It's a really long skirt, and I've got it stuck under my wheels of my chair. Sorry, I digress. So the 7-day is what I, so what I've explained to you just now when we had the 7-day program. It's that. So we'll do the experiment that I did where I've just shown you the results of people. That's going to be what you'll do for 7 days. So we'll do exactly what we did with them. You'll have 7 days, just you individually, scalar energy field, harmonics, the option if you want to send the nail clipping to me, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the opportunity to do the 7-day protocol that I've just been talking about in terms of the results. And also what I'll do also is you'll do the 7 days on the radionics plate as well. So a bit of extended time on that, but it's going to be the 7-day. Cool. I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you for coming to play and for joining me. So what we're going to do is have a little break, just 5 minutes. Let me call up my timer. When we get back, now, if you can't make it back, it's absolutely fine. For those of you who are here, because I can see your names on my list, I will include you, if you want me to, in the 24-hour party, right? Let me get me watch. So we're going to have a quick 5-minute break, bathroom break, get your water. Of course, if you're watching this as a replay recording, you're like, I don't need a break, then just fast forward 5 minutes. But we're going to have a break. Then we're going to come back. I'm going to do the Huna energy clearing. So just maybe while you're having a break, think about, let's just say if you were taking part in this, what would you like to achieve? And if there's something that comes to mind that you'd like to shift, clear, let's say something might be stopping you, blocking you, it might be something physical, or it could be mental, emotional. So as we've shown in the experiments, it's a real mixture. Just have a think about what you would most like to work on, achieve, or shift and change. And then energetically, we can put that into the mix for the Huna energy clearing. And then we're going to do the, I think it's 6 or 7 exercises from the workshop to get the ball rolling for that. And then we will bring it to a close. Hold on, my chat light is on before we go to break. Let me see if I need to read that. So my friend mentioned headaches from PCS. Can also that be a blockage as well? Can Huna help with that? You know, all I'm going to say, Huna works in very mysterious ways. I've had the most incredible, crazy, cool things happen with Huna. Actually, we'll have a break and then I'll come back to that. I'll tell you about some of the crazy, cool things that have happened with Huna. And then I'm going to preface that by saying, and I always say, let's see what happens, because I never actually quite know, because I'm not making something happen with the Huna. I'm just being a conduit for that energy. The other person, be like the transmitter and receiver. The other person is the receiver of that energy. And the way that I think of it is their higher self is also in the game and is going to make some decisions. So we'll talk about that when we come back from break. So 5 minutes on the clock, and I will see you back for our final segment. And if you think of any questions or any queries in the meantime, drop them into the chat or the Q&A. See you shortly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to begin. Hold on, my little light is on. Thinking we'll be the. Okay, cool, fabulous. Absolutely, yeah, get in touch. Yes, okay, let me know next week. That's absolutely fine. That was just one of the questions. So what we are going to do is we're going to do the workshop taster. Now, with regards to the workshop taster, I've got a series of exercises that I'm going to take you through in order to get the ball rolling for this. Now, with this one, I'm recording. So what this is one recording, but what I'm probably going to do is pull this part of the recording out and do it as a standalone for people who were at the first one, because I didn't do this when I first ran the intro. So rather than having to watch the whole thing all over again, I'm probably going to pull this one as an excerpt. So I might repeat a couple of the things I've previously said, but that's for the purpose of doing this as a separate recording. So for everyone who's just heard me introduce myself, for example, bear with me, continue the exercise in thinking about, so what I'm going to suggest you do when I do my intro, because I've already just done my intro for the main one, but I'm going to pull this as a separate. When I do my intro, one of the questions I'm going to be asking of you, let me pull it up so you can see it. This is one of the questions. First question from the exercises from the kicking off the workshop is, what would be your reason for signing up for the Quantum Alchemy workshop? Or if you're not signing up for the workshop, what was your reason for signing up here today? There's some reason why. Of all of the things you could do with your time, and of course there's no money involved in this one, it's free, the intro. Why? So are you thinking about something physical? Was it something spiritual? Or was it something mental and emotional? You can add that into the chat or in the private Q&A if you don't want to see people see what you're working on. But what was your why? So while I do my intro for the purposes of this part of the recording, just be thinking about your reason and what it is you'd most like to be focusing on as I go through the intro. And if you kind of go, yeah, I'm all set with that, what you might want to also do is think about your desired outcome for either being here for this intro or attending something like the Quantum Alchemy workshop. And as you think about your ideal outcome, how will you know you've achieved it? What will you see? What will you hear? What will you feel? Or what will you know within yourself? And you can maybe think back to some of the examples I shared in the first part of this workshop. If I've cut this as a smaller version, you can go back and watch the webinar. So be thinking about those two things while I do a very quick introduction of who I am and what I do for the purposes of this half of the recording. Right, made myself a cup of herbal tea. So cheers. I'm just going to have a little sip of that. And when I do the Huna intro, I will answer that question that came up previously. Andrew said whenever he does something with me, magic happens. I love that. And Andrew says, all three, because I know of your work. Anytime you do something, magic happens. So I'm just open as anything can happen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hold on a minute. Move the lights on. Physical and mental, releasing money and business blocks, post-COVID burnout, and general energy loss. And today, the migraine lifted. Brilliant. All right, so keep all of that in mind. And what I'm going to ask you to do while I introduce myself, because you just heard me introduce myself if you're on the live, is just be thinking about, okay, let's just say in terms of the physical and mental, how will you know when you've released those blocks? In terms of the general energy loss, what's your energy at now? Scale of 1 to 10. Well, 1 equals low, a minus number means it's through the floor, and 10 means it's through the roof, and you're like the Duracell bunny. And so do a little bit of a rating and start, I call it imagineering. Start imagineering. Anne says, I agree with Andrew, magic happens. That is so cool. Thank you very much. And so just be kind of in that space and in that place and in that vibe of thinking about, okay, what's my ideal? How will I know that I've achieved it? And also, a friend of mine, Eloise, used to do something called body talk. But this whole thing and being in dialogue with the mind and body, you can just be gearing the mind and body up and just even going, okay, when we come to do the Huna piece, what's the first thing I can do to start shifting, changing, releasing, resolving that, such that when I've had that shift and that change and that resolution, everything else starts to disappear. So start thinking about it from that perspective, as I very quickly do an intro for the people who might be watching this as a standalone. And then we're going to get straight down into it, and we're going to do some shifting and some changing. Right, here we go. So for those of you I haven't met before, my name is Marilyn Devonish, the NeuroSuccess coach, rapid transformation specialist. And I say rapid not for the sake of just having speed for speed's sake, doing things once, doing it fast, doing it deep, doing it in a transformational way, and everything else goes from there. So in a nutshell, I'm a coach, therapist, media commentator, workshop facilitator, doing things both online and offline, and have been in this line of work since October 2000. The list is long and varied. I started off, I was studying to be a chartered accountant, but I was very quiet, very shy, lacking in confidence, very low self-esteem, terrified of public speaking, so could barely even express myself to my own family, and I contemplated suicide in September 2000. That coincided because in the summer of 2000, I signed up for what I thought was a communication skills course. When I got all of the course materials, I realized it was way more than that, and included hypnotherapy and timeline therapy and this thing called Huna, Huna, which I'd never heard of. I just knew I was signing up for the NLP component, neuro-linguistic programming. So I actually tried to get a refund. And I said, this isn't what I've signed up for. Really, quite frankly, I'm not interested, because I had a business studies degree, a postgraduate marketing diploma with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I was not the least bit interested in doing all of what I would have called hocus pocus stuff. They didn't give me a refund. They said, do the training. If you don't get massive value at the end, we'll give you your money back. And so I went along angry, face like thunder, second guessing everything, just want my money back. Halfway through, I thought, well, I better play the game and at least participate. Otherwise, they're going to say you didn't play full out, therefore you're not getting a refund. So I decided to jump in with both feet, with my suicidal self, because this was in October 2000, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I went on to become a practitioner, master practitioner and trainer of NLP, hypnosis and timeline therapy. I became a certified photo reading instructor because I've been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in my 30s. No, actually in my early 20s. And when I was 32, this is when I stumbled into this, but in my early 20s, diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, my doctor said there was nothing he could do for me. So when the photo reading came across my radar, now my mindset is slightly different, because I first had the photo reading cassette tapes, which sit behind me on the shelf. They are, hold on. Oh, they are right here, and they are physical. Hold on, so they don't all fall out. They're cassette tapes. I purchased those cassette tapes in 1998, and they sat on the shelf for 2 years because I couldn't believe it was possible to photo read at 25,000 words per minute, get through a whole book in 5 minutes from start to finish, and learn strategies to remember and recall what you've read. So I just left them sitting on the shelf. And when I was on that personal development training, the person who was running it, someone said, how do you remember this stuff? And he said, well, I read 20 to 30 books a month. I was like, I didn't even read that in my life. Dude, he clearly doesn't get out enough. But I then remembered when somebody says, well, how'd you do that? He pointed to the back of the room and he said, I photo read. And I was like, I've got those tapes at home. So I went back with all of my new NLP and hypnotherapy mindset, pulled those tapes off the shelf. That's why I coined the phrase for myself, shelf development, in that my shelf was being more developed than me. Was so blown away with the results within a couple of weeks. I then flew out to Minneapolis to study with Dr. Paul Sheely, the creator of photo reading. And that's been one of the things that's then allowed me to add all of these other modalities into the mix. I completed my photo reading instructor training in March 2002. Yeah, and everything just kind of went crazy from there. So over the years, I've added about 20 different modalities: EFT, DNA theta healing. As I said, flew over to Hawaii to study Huna, past life regression, future life regression, FLP, tarot reading, access consciousness, access bars, OTH, opening the heart, emo trance, energetic NLP, soul plan reading, archetypal profiling, you name it, is probably in there. The whole thing about it for me is transformation. How can I help my clients and myself change and transform in deep and powerful ways as easily and effortlessly as possible? And that was it. So I've been writing for newspapers and magazines since 2003, started off doing emotional health and well-being, had a monthly, what we call agony aunt problem page column with Spirit and Destiny magazine for 7 years. I was also a media expert for Psychology's magazine. So that picture I showed you earlier, speaking at Kensington, oh no, actually you might not have been here earlier because this might be a standalone, but the thing I talked about earlier, me speaking at Kensington Olympia to those hundreds of people, and they said they felt like I was speaking to them individually. That was one of the assignments I was doing for Psychology's magazine. And oh gosh, I've written thousands of articles. I also now write for business publications, have been for many, many years. So things like Huffington Post, People Management, Chartered Management Institute, The Guardian, Forbes magazine, do a lot of TV, radio, television work. So often now I think I did, was it 3 interviews? I did a radio interview, a TV interview. If you're watching this in real time, did that last week. I'd literally just got off the plane from Canada, walked out of the airport, put my iPad mini, propped it up on my suitcase, put my headphones on, and I dialed into the news station, and there were airplanes taking off like a few feet away, because the interview was at 8:30 in the morning. I was supposed to land at 6:30 a.m. I didn't land until 7:30, so there was no point trying to get home. And then I hunted around for 20 minutes trying to find somewhere quiet that had a signal. So I do a lot of TV, a lot of radio, do a lot of talking about remote working, because that's been my specialist field since 2003. Where I've been a specialist remote working implementation consultant, where I go into organizations to write, design, and implement remote working, flexible working, or what we used to call smart working policy and strategy. So I started doing that in 2003, well before lockdown and all of that sort of stuff. Co-authored 2 chapters in a book on remote working in March 2020. And I design and deliver corporate workshops. It says 50 plus, there's probably hundreds of them now over the last 20 plus years, but all sorts of topics: communication skills, flexible working, of course, emotional intelligence, stakeholder management, critical thinking and decision making, public speaking, presentation skills, leadership development, managing projects, diversity, inclusion, resilience, you name it, it's probably been in there. And the very first book I co-authored was called Stories of Transformation, with people like Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, Dr. Paul Shealy, the creator of photo reading, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, Chun-Yi Lin, who created Spring Forest Qigong, and the business guru Brian Tracy. Has always been about transformation for me. And before any of you go, well, it's all right for you, this was my personality right up until the age of 32. Shy, lacking in confidence, very low self-esteem, prone to self-sabotage, suicidal. I said I was like a spectator, living life on the outside, looking in. I was diagnosed with what was, as I said, early onset Alzheimer's in my 20s, physically and emotionally drained. I would be often sleeping 12 to 15 hours a day just to function. So I always say I didn't do a Lady Gaga. I wasn't born this way necessarily. Now, let me pre-frame that. I say that, you know, it's a nice, because that's one of Lady Gaga's songs. It felt like it was all in there. It was just waiting to get out. So that's the way I'm going to kind of describe this one. So that, in a nutshell, is my intro. And I'm just going to now whiz over to our little Huna session. Now, for those of you who haven't come across Huna before, if you happen to be watching this and we haven't come across what I do, Huna is an ancient Hawaiian physical and emotional healing empowerment practice. It means secret or concealed knowledge. It's a way of empowering yourself and also shifting and changing energetic blocks, cleaning up energetic, or what you call arca connections. And it works with energy, the elements, fire, water, etc., the elementals, and the symbols. So with regards to Huna, these are some of the symbols. So when I shared with you about my client out in Australia, and I'll just show you the slide for that in a minute if you're watching this as a standalone, the symbol that I said I used, where Pippa said she felt the pushback, it's that black one. The thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake. Where Pippa said she imagined a red triangle of fire, bearing in mind she'd never seen the symbols before, that's the red triangle of fire. And when she said she felt like the energy is shining from the inside out, that one at the end, the fourth one, is the wave of light that makes you gasp. So those are the symbols. this was myself at the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution, where I just did 2 minutes of Huna with the group. They had no idea what I was doing. I was just asked if I could do a very quick meditation. There were a group of people downstairs who had been through something called the Grenfell tragedy, and they were the survivors. So the organizer of the conference said, can you just do a quick meditation or something? So I just did 2 minutes of Huna, and all people heard and saw was me on stage going, after asking their permission, that's it. I didn't explain because I only had 2 minutes. I was just about to introduce the next speaker, who was Lynn McTaggart. And on this slide, you can see Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Bruce Lipton. And so they didn't know what I was doing, but people were constantly coming up for the next 2 days. I could not walk 2 steps without somebody saying, oh my God, that thing you did with Huna, I don't know what you were, they didn't even know what I was doing because they didn't really catch the name. So I don't know what you were doing, but that thing with your breath. And then they would go on to say, oh my God, well, I had this happening. One person said, oh, I hurt my back, my shoulder, the pain was gone. And, I was so confused. I was really tired, or I've just flown in, I've got jet lag. And suddenly I felt awake and alert. One person said they were having hot flushes. And by the time I finished doing whatever I was doing, the temperature had calmed down. It was really wide and varied. And I was saying earlier on to the group I was speaking to for the fuller webinar that I couldn't go anywhere with, and I was sitting in the toilet. I was in the toilet. Somebody's talking to me over the cubicle, and they said I spoke to you at the event in the ladies and explained how I felt the energy around me, the sense of calm. But since that time, I'm quite amazed at what has happened, because I continued to get emails several weeks after that event, because they had that wonderful ripple effect where what started in the room had continued. And this was the thing I'd shared with regards to my client in Australia, who, it turns out, when I read this several years later, everything she was describing was the order and sequence I was using, but she didn't know what I was doing. All they heard was these sounds. I didn't say what I was doing. I didn't announce what I was doing. This was an MP3. So it was in the days of teleseminars, like dial-up telephone. So they didn't have any visuals, but she described everything. So she described feeling compressed, and that was that first symbol where people feel it as pushback. She described the image of a red triangle of fire. That was the red triangle. She described the pain being drawn out of the body, and that's where I would have been doing the sword fingers thing, because I wear a headset. I was wearing a headset, so I had both hands free. She said glowing from the inside out. That's where I put the symbol into the heart space, where you glow from the inside out. Feeling the chest space opening up. That's where there's a symbol you use to open up the space and the energy. Everything she described was exactly what I was doing, but she had no idea what I was doing. And she wasn't there live, because people are saying, well, what if I can't make it live? She wasn't there live. She listened to an audio recording after I'd run the live session. So Huna is powerful. Now, we had a question that came in terms of, so friend mentioned they had headaches from PCS. Can also be a blockage as well. Can Huna help with that? One of the things I always say about Huna, it works in mysterious ways. I don't drink, and if I did, I certainly don't like beer. But when I was growing up in the UK, there was an advert said Heineken refreshes the that other beers cannot reach. I think of Huna in the same way, like energetic, spiritual Heineken, because I've had some really interesting requests. I often, you might think this sounds weird, I often have messages from people when they have a relative who is dying, and they will say to me, Marilyn, my mum, dad, aunt, uncle, cousin, great, once removed, is serious, dying. Can you help? Can you send some Huna? Now, for the first few years, I just used to say a flat out no, because that's not what I do. And then suddenly I'm sitting there one day, somebody sent me a message saying, my granddad is dying. Could you send some Huna for me, please? I was just about to say no. My brain was like, Marilyn, this works with the higher self. This works with higher intelligence. This isn't about you. I was like, okay, what do you mean? So it's like, well, ask the higher self. And not just your higher self, their higher self. So I said, okay, yeah, right, fine, I'll do it. So I'm out here. Their grandfather was in Italy. So I'm here. I live in just outside central London. So I'm saying, okay, let me do a high self process, speak to his high self. And the thing I always say to friends, clients, look, if it's their time to go, that's none of my business. everybody is on their own life path, spiritual path, etc. It's not for me to interfere. So if it's their time to go, I hold the intention that we have a smoother, more beautiful transition. And if it's their time to, and if they're going to stay, then let's give them some energy and life force energy, what we call in Huna terms, the mana. Let's give them some extra mana to help facilitate that. But it's not my decision. It's nothing to do with me at all. The ball's in their court. So I do this higher self piece. I'll get goosebumps just thinking about her. I do this higher self piece with her granddad. Let's say it's on the Monday. I get an email the next day saying, did you do anything with my granddad, with the Huna? I says, yeah, I did. Why? She says, he just suddenly sat up in bed, bolt upright, and asked for and she said, whatever their version of cup of tea, but she said it kind of in what, there was a sort of special tea that he liked. She said, he just sat up bolt, they'd done the last rites, they called the priest in. This is how end of days it was. She said, he just sat up bolt upright and asked for a cup of tea. He'd been given the last rites. So was that Huna or was that coincidence? I don't know. And when I first started with the scalar energy that we're talking about here today on this webinar, I had a friend get in touch and his dad was dying. And his dad had been in the hospital, non-responsive. And he said, Marilyn, I've just seen you're doing stuff with the scalar. I know your Huna already works because like yourself, Andrew, he's had some real magic happen with regards to that. Pretty much every time you do something, like you said, something magical happens. So he says, can you send my dad some Huna? And if you feel it's appropriate, could we put him into the scalar field? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So he was one of the very first experiments because I was just talking to people about the remote experiment this time, so I hadn't really started. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I said, give me your dad's name. So I wrote his name out, did the name imprinting. And my friend said, I just want to speak to my dad one last time. I want to have the conversations like we used to have. Gosh, it's quite emotional because anyway, he said, I want to have a real conversation with my dad like we used to, because I'm talking to him. I think he can hear me, but I don't know that he can. And if he sort of murmurs an answer, it's not the same. I want to have a one last conversation with my dad. So I put his dad in the scalar hold on. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it. I probably can't because it's a big notebook. Oh, if I can find it quickly, I'm trying to think what date might it have been. I think it was on the left-hand side of my notebook because I wrote down word for word what he said. No. It was just crazy. I might not be able to find it in a hurry because there's a lot of notes in here, and these are client notes, etc. Oh, hold on, remote home energy experiment might have been around this time. Okay, I found it. Let me put my little stopper there. So he says to me, put dad in the energy field. So he put his dad in the energy field. The next day he sent me a message and I wrote down what he said. Well, we were talking. He sent me we were talking. He said, I got to talk to you. I've just spoken to my dad. Here's what he said. He said, oh my God, it's like night and day. His composure looked like himself. He looked like he was actually speaking. And before he looked like someone at death's door and ready to go. And now he looks like himself. He's gone from, Jesus, I haven't read this since I wrote it. He looks like he's gone from spaced out and completely no clue to present. And that was within 15 hours of, me doing the Huna, etc. He said, I've not seen him looking like that in a while. I'm not going to say the date because if you know this person, it might give the game away. But I wrote down the date that this all happened. That's amazing. And then because he was doing FaceTime with his dad, then his mum that afternoon went into the hospital, not really knowing what we'd been doing, and she came back and said, your dad seems like himself today. And he sat up, had a cup of tea because he wasn't taking in any fluids and it was a fight, so they had to then go to IV because he would be fighting them in terms of taking things by mouth. And she said, your dad was like himself. Look, that could be another. I mean, I've had thousands of these coincidences since the year 2001 when I really started going all in with the Huna. So this could be another coincidence, like my friend in Italy. But there are thousands of those coincidences. So that was really fascinating. But he got his wish to speak to his dad again and have that one last conversation where his dad was like himself. So when I tell you that this stuff is just like OMG, I'm not kidding. So going back to the blockage and the headache, it probably can help. I never, ever, ever know what's going to happen, but I allow the energy. I just say, like, I'm like a conduit for the energy that it will flow through, but I'm not going do this, do that, do the other. I'm not like a puppet master. I'm just like, go forth, let's direct the energy. A bit like having almost like a laser. You can have just stuff going all over the place, or you can say, right, let's focus this energy for a moment and focus on this person. But once that's done, I'm like, my work is done. And then we see what happens. So it can probably help. I've had people, you know, headaches, migraines, all the rest of it, just after a few minutes go, oh my God. And one of the, and this one actually, the reason this person came to me for Huna is I worked with a friend of his, and we were at, there's someone called Andy Harrington who does courses. And his friend, who I'd never met before, we were at the back of the room. And I looked over at his friend and he just didn't look very well. And I said, you all right? And he said, I've got a banging migraine. It's really bad. We'd never met. I said, oh, would you like some energy work? And he gave me a sort of like, okay. Now he's an NLP trainer himself, so he kind of knows about this stuff. So so the whole training is going on. We're at the back, so we pull up a chair. He sits on the chair, and I said, "Okay, just sit down," because he's way taller than me, and I wanted to be able to work around the top of his head. So he sits down in this room where this whole training is going on, but we're at the back, so everybody's facing away from us. So I said, "Okay, just sit down and relax. Do I have your permission?" He's like, "Yeah, go for it." So I'm like, partway through, he went, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Oh, it's this thing called Huna." I said, "You all right?" And he went, "The migraine's gone." I went, "Really?" I said, "Well, I've got a couple more symbols. Let me just finish what I'm doing." Because there's a nice way you can do it. You can seal it up. You can seal in what you've done. So I said, "Let me just finish off." But he said an interesting word. He said, "It's gone." He said, "The migraine's gone." And then the whole time, because we're there for like 3 days at this hotel in Heathrow, I think near Heathrow or Gatwick, one of the airports. And he was just like, every time he saw me in the room, he'd be like, so he then invited me down to do a Huna session for his NLP group. And then this is Lackloy, and Lackers, of course, whenever you see a client, I name them. Sorry, just picking up the photo reading cassette tapes. So whenever I name someone, they've given me permission to share. So he's then telling Lack about this, because Lack is saying he's got this blockage, like your friend is saying it might be a blockage. But Lack was blocked with work and finances. So his friend says, call Marilyn. So we did some Huna over the phone. Just so happened we were at something called the London Yes Group, where I was on the leadership team. Lack was there, so we just did 5 minutes in the back of the room as well. But I get the call that I often get, or the message. He says, "You're not going to believe this. You have an amazing ability, and it is having miraculous effects." And what happened was he'd been out of work. He's self-employed. He'd been out of work for 9 months, so is now eating into his savings, and nothing was kind of taking off. He said, "Marilyn, just after we did the Huna, I got a call from someone. The contract was dead in the water." Those were his words. And he said, they phoned him up out of the blue and says, "Can you start tomorrow?" He had to say no, because in that 9 months, he'd taken on responsibilities for the kids, getting them ready for school, taking them to school, picking them up, So he couldn't just drop that. So he said, "I can start, but can we start next week? Because I've got to make arrangements for the kids." And when I saw him a few years later, a friend of mine, Suki, had organised a dinner in London. So Lack arrives a bit after me, and I said, "Hi, Lack, how's it going? Lovely to see you." He said, "Oh man, I'm so busy with work." And I just laughed I didn't say anything to Lack, but I just laughed to myself, because I'm like, when we first met, it was tumbleweed. And now his first comment was, so busy with work. So what I'm going to say is Huna works in mysterious ways. So my job is to be the imparter, the conduit for the energy, and then it will work its magic from there. So what we're going to do is a Huna experiential session. So let me have a sip of my green tea. So what we're going to do is actually, no, let me set my stopwatch just so I can keep track of how long this is going to be. So what we're going to do is you can think about something you like, and trust me, with the thing that Pippa did, there were people who were listening to that. I've had someone message me out of the blue, said, "Hi, Marilyn, I just wanted to say thank you for your audio recording. It was amazing." And then they started listing all the things that happened when they were listening to the audio. And I was reading the email. I was like, I haven't done a session lately. So I emailed them back, said, "Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for the feedback. So it's always really wonderful." And it is genuinely wonderful to get feedback with people, because that's how I can share these testimonials and give you a flavor of how this stuff works. And I said, "Can I just ask, what were you listening to?" And so they told me the name of the MP3. And I'm like, I recorded that years ago. But the way they were describing the impact on them, it's as though they were there, like the people live. And that was another of those things that made me go, wow, this thing really does transcend time and space. So even if you're watching this as a replay recording, it can still have the same, as Lack Lloyd calls it, miraculous effect. So just have an open mind, open your mind. And right, so let's see. Let me go back here. All right. So I'm just looking through the Q&A. Actually, let me write these down so that I'm not having to look at the screen. And if there's anything else you think you'd like to, for those of you here live, who want to add into the mix that you want to shift and change. Let's see what we got. Quantum Alchemy intro. So, oh, hold on. I'm just writing down what people have previously said, so I have it in front of me. Okay. Okay, brilliant. Oh, there it was. I was looking for. And what we're going to do is a quick round of Huna and a little quick whiz of Access Consciousness, because Access is a nice way just to kind of get the ball rolling. Okay, I forgot everything. Oh, yeah. So Andrew, what I'm going to do is, just for the friend, we'll just do the high self thing. If your friend is open to receiving a bit of shifting energy, we'll put that into the mix as well. And okay, hold on, let me do that. Yeah, okay. All right, I think I've got everything. Hold on, let me go back to there. All right. Okay. Right. Let me do one more quick whiz through. Make sure I've got everything. Okay. Hold on. And alrighty. Cool. Okay. So we've got all of that. If you haven't had any water to drink in the last 15 to 20 minutes, grab some water. Okay, great, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Wunderbar. Okay. Okay, cool. Right, I think I've now got everything. Famous last words. The person beeping outside agrees. Alrighty. Yeah, I think we're good. We're good. Got that one. Okay. Okay. Right. Alrighty. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, then we're going to do it. We're going to do, let's open with 3 hard breaths. It's a really nice way to set the energy. So the hard breath, hold on. So I've got all these screens open now with the Q&A. Let me close those. So it's the hard breath where you breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. And when you breathe out through the mouth, you make a ha sound. So it sounds like, that's it. So and you don't have to breathe at the same rate and pace as me. So we're going to do 3 hard breaths and you return to your regular breathing. I'm going to run through some of the things that we've got from the chat, do a quick round of access consciousness. So the way that works, I'm going to create a statement. So I'm going to say, for example, anywhere and everywhere you have blockages. We don't need to go, the blockage here, just say blockages. So you're going to bring all of that in as a collective. Is it okay? So you're asking yourself permission. Is it okay to release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate all of that now? Times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time, yada, yada, yada. If it's okay, you say yes, Y-E-S. So you're affirming it to yourself. Now, if you're in a position where you can say yes out loud, say it out loud. If you're, let's say, you've got your headphones in the middle of Starbucks, your regular coffee shop, wherever it is, then you just affirm yes in your head because we want to get that energetic vibration. So I leave a bit of a gap. I'll ask the question. I'll leave a gap, and that's where you say yes in the space and the place that you're in. And then I run what we call the clearing statement. The clearing statement is right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds and povads. I've done whole recordings explaining, apart from the povads bit, because that's something new they've added in the last year or so. But basically with the clearing statement, I've got loads of recordings out there where I explain what the clearing statement is, how it works, my theories about why it works. So when I run the clearing statement, what it does is it whips up the energy and neutralizes it and destroys and uncreates it. And then I'm going to just run through each of the things I've got on this list. So anywhere and everywhere there are blockages with money and finance, where you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all that. I'll leave a pause. You say yes, and then right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds and povads. And we're going to cycle through all of these. And then I'm going to do a round of the Huna energy symbols, where what you'll hear is the we'll do a round of the Huna. And then when we close, I'll say, okay, take a deep breath in and exhale. Open your eyes, and if you're lying down, I'm just going to say, you know, pat up and down the chest, bring yourself back into now. If you're sitting, you can stamp your feet, bring yourself back into the here and now, and then we'll go in to the demo questions for the beginning of the Quantum Alchemy workshop. Cool. So if there are any final questions or queries, you can put those into the chat or put those into the Q&A. Okay. Oh, and just to say, oh, hold on. Okay, and alrighty. And also with something like when you say health challenges, or I don't need to know what they are. What you can just say, you will then say, give yourself permission. And one of the things I say, I'm going to be saying this when we do the clear, when we do the question, anywhere and everywhere. So you can say anywhere and everywhere I'm experiencing health challenges, will I now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety, times a gazillion, my back to beginning of time, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I would say that is means we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty specifics of it. You're giving your body's natural intelligence the instruction to go forth with the health challenges. So absolutely fine to have that as that general statement. Alrighty, so I think we're good to rock and roll. I'm just going to have a drink of water and then we shall begin. Cool. So make sure you're sitting or lying comfortably, up to you. And just first of all, put your focus and attention on your breathing. Notice the in-breath, notice the out-breath, and just relax your breathing. And then imagine there's a wave of relaxation that starts at the top of your head and is cascading all the way down to the bottom of your feet like a healing, cleansing waterfall. And as it cascades from the top of your head all the way down to your feet, with anything and everything where it's past its sell-by date, and you've got the learnings, you've got the insights, you've got what you need to know, you've got what you need to pay attention to, and you know it's time to release and resolve it now, you can just give yourself permission to let it go. And it's washed away as though you're under a universal, energetic, sonic shower, and you can be releasing and resolving and letting those things go in a way that is right and healthy and ecological for you and for your greatest and highest good. And then you're going to take 3 ha breaths where you breathe in through the nose and you breathe out through the mouth. And as you breathe out through the mouth, you make a ha sound. And you can breathe at the rate and the pace that is right for you. So take a deep breath in and exhale, making the ha sound. And one more ha breath. And then just return to your regular breathing, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And then just checking in with yourself. Do you give yourself permission to release and resolve and let go of anything and everything where it no longer serves you? It's used well past its used by date, well past its sell by date, and it's okay for you to let it go now. And just give yourself permission. Do you have permission? Do you give yourself permission? And if it's a yes, great. If it's a no, then you can just ask the things that are not relevant for you just to pass you by. But if you give yourself permission, just be open to shifting, changing, releasing and resolving in a way that is right and healthy and ecological for you and for your greatest and highest good. And for some of you, that will be instant, like the bolts of lightning. And for others, it will be far more subtle. And it may just be with the gift of hindsight that you notice that general, undulating, gradual, wonderful ripple effect, where when you look back on something, you realize how much and how quickly and how easily and effortlessly it has now changed. So just allow this to work in the way that's right for you. And then take another deep breath and exhale. And if you haven't already done so, you can also, up to you, you can also choose to gently close your eyes. And we're going to run that first round of access consciousness to start releasing, resolving, changing old thoughts, beliefs, ideas, limitations, and blockages that no longer serve you in this lifetime. So anywhere and everywhere you just feel that you are holding blockages, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety times a gazillion? And if it's a yes, you just say yes, or affirm yes to yourself in your head to get the resonance and vibration of that. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere there are blockages in business and in finance, and those blockages no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time? And again, you can just affirm yes if you want to. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds, and POVADs. And also, even if the statement doesn't belong to you, if you think, oh, I like the sound of that, then you just say yes. So anywhere and everywhere you feel like your business is jinxed, that no matter what you do, things fall at the last hurdle and never quite come to fruition. It's like you don't get past the finishing gate. So anywhere and everywhere you feel that some way, shape, or form your business and your finances are jinxed, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time? Again, if it's a yes, you affirm yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds, and POVADs. Anywhere and everywhere you're experiencing a sense of burnout, and that might be physical burnout, spiritual burnout, mental burnout, emotional burnout, or burnout at the level of the deepest part of your consciousness, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that, where that burnout no longer serves you in this lifetime? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds, and POVADs. So anywhere and everywhere you feel a sense of apathy. And for those of that sort of means like you're just like, oh, whatever. We used to have a cartoon here called Kevin and Perry, and they were just like 2 petulant teenagers, like, ugh. It's a bit like that. So anywhere and everywhere you have a sense of apathy, and that no longer serves you and your sole purpose, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time and even beyond that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds, and POVADs. And anywhere and everywhere you have a sense of general energy loss. And again, it could be your physical energy, your spiritual energy, your emotional energy. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time and even beyond that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds, and POVADs. Anywhere and everywhere you have a sense that you've been blocked and you want to release blockages with money, blockages with finance, and blockages with creating, generating, saving and accumulating money and wealth and savings, that kind of financial cushion and that growth phase. So anything and everything that's been stopping and blocking that, known or unknown, seen or unseen, conscious or unconscious, this lifetime or previous lifetimes, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time and beyond? And again, even if this isn't yours, but you go and go, yes, you just say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. So anywhere and everywhere you've had this headache, might be due to PCS, might be due to blockages, may be due to anything else. Anywhere and everywhere you've got the lessons, the learnings, the insights that this headache is here to share with you. So anywhere and everywhere, it is now time for you to release the headache. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate anything and everything that's causing that, that's feeding into that, or any of the blockages that might be leading to that? Do you give yourself permission now to release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate, and let the headache and the associated blockages go? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. Anywhere and everywhere it feels as though there are blocks in your sacral energy center and those lower chakras. So anywhere and everywhere you're carrying those blockages, known or unknown, seen or unseen, physical, spiritual, emotional, or mental, that no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety, times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. So anywhere and everywhere you've been feeling a sense of disappointment, as though you've been let down, and it might be let down by particular people, it might be let down by situation and circumstances. In soul plan terms, there's a thing where sometimes you feel like you've been abandoned by the divine. So anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of disappointment, as though you've been let down, will you now release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate all of that disappointment in a way that's right and healthy and ecological for you, right back to the beginning of time and beyond? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. Anywhere and everywhere you feel as though you are a constant failure, as though it's the opposite to the Midas touch, where everything you touch does not turn to gold, and you feel as though it's been a constant struggle and work. So anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of failure, that constant sense of failure, where it's almost like nothing that you do really works out, and everything you touch, it feels as though it's almost doomed to fail, even though you know in your heart of hearts that's not true, but that's been the outside experience. Anywhere and everywhere that sense of constant failure no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate, and release and resolve that right back to the beginning of time? If it's a yes, you just say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. And anywhere and everywhere it feels as though you are just unlucky, as though you don't have the energy of the gods and the universe on your side. So anywhere and everywhere you carry that thought, that belief, that judgment, that limitation, and that no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate anything and everything that feeds into that, feeds off of that, keeps that belief set going? Will you release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate it now, right back to the beginning of time and beyond? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds, and povads. Anywhere and everywhere you've been suffering with health challenges, and those health challenges no longer serve you. So ask your inner mind to allow you to get the thoughts, the learnings, the insights, and also anything and everything you need to pay attention to, such that as you pay attention, not just pay attention, but put into action the things that will better serve you. When you feel that you've done that now, do you give yourself permission to get the ball rolling in releasing, resolving, and letting go of those health challenges if they no longer serve you in this lifetime? And again, if it's a yes, you just say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pop, shorts, boys and beyonds and povads. Anything and everything that's blocking your flow and blocking the flow of abundance. And that could be abundance in terms of money, the usual money and wealth. It could be the abundance of good ideas, the abundance of love, the abundance of success, the abundance of joy, the abundance of happiness. So anywhere and everywhere there are blockages to your flow of abundance, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate anything and everything that's been feeding onto that, feeding off of that, and release, resolve, and destroy and create all of that right back to the beginning of time and even beyond that. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pop, shorts, boys and beyonds and povads. And anything and everything that has been stopping and blocking your progress or causing spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, astral problems and challenges that no longer serve you in this lifetime, whether those challenges and the causes of those challenges are known or unknown, seen or unseen, this lifetime, previous lifetimes, ancestral, genealogical, anywhere and everywhere, those blockages, those challenges, those thoughts, those beliefs, even those contracts and agreements and karmic agreements, anywhere and everywhere, they no longer serve you in this lifetime. Will you now release, resolve, destroy, and uncreate all of those in their entirety times a gazillion, right back to the beginning of time and even beyond that now? If you say yes, you just say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pop, shorts, boys and beyonds and povads. And we'll now just do a round of the Huna energy. So again, you can just kind of sit back, lie back, and just give yourself permission, if you choose to receive the energy and these symbols and just allow them to work in a way that is right and healthy and ecological and at a place and a space that is right for you. And then you can just put your focus, your attention, your awareness on your breathing and just noticing the in-breath and noticing the out-breath. And then at the rate and pace which is comfortable for you, you can take a deep breath in and exhale. And if you've had your eyes closed, you can gently open your eyes. And if you're sitting down, you can just gently stamp your feet on the floor just to ground yourself back into the place and space that you're in. If you're lying down, you can pat up and down the arms, pat the chest, bring yourself back into the here and now. And if you've got some water handy, which I do recommend, have a drink of water. All right, how was that for you? Okay, so what we are going to do now is we're going to do some of the workshop taster exercises, having cleared the deck a bit energetically. So these are from the Quantum Alchemy online workshops. I'm just playing around with what do I think I want to open with to get the ball rolling and start to bring forth the energy. So exercise number 1 is reason. So just ask yourself, what was your if you're, if you haven't signed up, you're not doing the program, just think about what's your reason for signing up for this particular webinar or watching this particular segment. So what was your reason for signing up for the Quantum Alchemy workshop or this intro? And it might be that it was physical, spiritual, might be mental and emotional. And if you haven't already done so, you can put that into the chat or into the private Q&A. Also, if you have a notebook, a journal, or just a piece of paper, write it down because it's a really good idea. I've had a client once who used to come to my annual Mind, Body, Spirit, Energy Fest workshops. I used to run them the first weekend of December, and I ran them. They were in person. I did, of course, do some online as well, but I ran them every year for 10 years. So first weekend of December, every year, we'd rock up to what was the Jury's Inn Hotel here in sunny, it's sunny today, actually, sunny Watford, and I'd run that workshop. So they used to use the same workbook, and they opened a page from the year before. And they said they were reading the words, what they'd written, in terms of what would you like, why are you here, what do you want most to achieve, da 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 da. And they said, I know it's my writing. I know it's my my notebook. I even remember writing it, but she said it's like reading the words of another person in terms of how much had changed in that intervening year that they hadn't really noticed. But just seeing it written down, you're sometimes like, whoa. And I had that experience when I found my NLP practitioner notes from October 2000. And when I was working on my presentation skills, and my big goal was to have the confidence to speak to small groups of people. So I'm talking about 6, half a dozen or so people, have the confidence to speak to small groups of people and look them in the eye. That was my big goal. Now, I'm not ridiculing that goal because you start where you are. But now when I'm speaking to thousands of people, when I think back to that goal, I'm like, really? Would I agree with that? That'd be my goal? Surely I would have said I wanted to speak to hundreds or thousands of people, but it was incremental. But going back and reading what I'd written, I was like, whoa, how much times have changed, how much times have changed. It's like, wow. Nowadays, when I get invited to speak somewhere, my question is like, oh my God, what size is the audience? My question is like, what's the date? Let me check if I'm free. And I had somebody invite me to do something yesterday. And I was like, first thing is like, let me check the date. I'd see if I'm free. I'm no longer thinking about the number of people who will be there and, ooh, it's going to be a larger group. And as I said, I was terrified of speaking right up until the age of 32. But going back and just finding my notes, it's like, oh my God, that's amazing. So just going to give you a minute or so. If you haven't, I know those of you who are here live have already done it, but if you're watching this as a replay recording, I'm going to give you just a minute your reason for being at this, watching this intro, or signing up for the Quantum Alchemy workshop. Write that down. Your time starts now. While you're doing that, I'm going to go back and have a look at my chat, because that's on. Okay, so you carry on writing. I'm just looking at the chat. So if you're writing, that is my eye, right eye, teary-eyed, heavy chest, dry cough, throat. Cool. So in terms of that, now one of the things you can do, over the next couple of days, you can also be saying, dear body. This is what you can phrase it however you want to do it. Because when I first started speaking to my unconscious mind, I was like, dear unconscious mind. So you can say, dear body, or however you want to phrase it. What's the purpose in the right eye, the heavy chest, the dry cough, the throat? And just wait for your intuition. It might not come in that moment. You might be, I don't know, getting yourself a glass of water the next day, and boom, something comes into your head. And then you can also be saying, is there anything it will be useful for me to know or learn or pay attention to, such that as I now start to pay attention, I can have these issues, these challenges, the throat, the chest, the cough, the teary eyes, I can now have them start to disappear. And then listen, because sometimes people are told and they still don't do it. Like, move your body, drink more water, eat more veg. And this isn't rocket science a lot of the time, but you know what I mean? So if you're going to be asking the question, be prepared to also pay attention to that. All right, so that's your reason. The next thing we want to look at, exercise number 2, this is a mini little snapshot. What is your ideal desired outcome from Quantum Alchemy workshop, remote experiment, this intro? And when you think about your ideal outcome, what will you see? What will you hear? What will you feel? And what will you know? So let me use the same example of the public speaking. When I achieved my goal of being able to speak to small groups of people, what I would see is me confidently, let's say, being in a meeting room, because I was even scared to speak up at meetings at work. So I'd be in a meeting, let's say, I would see myself sitting up straighter, looking people in the eye. I would hear myself responding during the meeting, not coming out of the meeting going, oh, I should have said that, or I wish I said that. Hear myself speaking during the meeting. I would feel confident. I would hear myself speaking eloquently. I might even see other people reacting to what I'm saying in a positive way, just to give you a flavor of how you might, frame this in your mind. And what would I know? I would know that my contribution is just as valid as anyone else's. And I will know that I do have the ability to speak in public. And I know that I have the ability to speak in public and make an impact. So whatever it is whatever you think about in terms of your ideal outcome. Now with the body, let's just say I'm going to use this one as an example with the teary-eyed, the heavy chest. It could be, now also, good point. So I'm talking to there's an internal dialogue going on here most of the time. But the internal dialogue was, remember to focus on what you want. So rather than saying my chest is no longer heavy, and I'm not saying that's how you would phrase it, because I know you're well versed in the personal development field. Just is for people who might just be kind of just going with this, what seems like the obvious solution. Rather than saying my chest is no longer heavy, if you don't want your chest to be heavy, what do you want instead? So you might say my chest is clear. My throat is clear. I feel so the person who's talking about the energy, I have a boundless energy. My energy is good. My energy is sparkling. I feel effervescent. So go with what you actually want. Because I could have said, well, I'll see myself not cowering in meetings, but actually what I'm still doing is the same thing. I'm still cowering. That's my main thought. So everything you say in terms of what you want, make sure as those words come out of your mouth or those thoughts go into your head, it's actually what you want. Oh, I see. So symptoms, what you felt during what was happening. Okay, cool. But still a good example though. But yes, thank you for, and so amazing experience as always. Brilliant. Glad you enjoyed that. I look at it as clearing. Absolutely. Do you know, there was someone called, he was of course ridiculed. That's a story for another day, but his name was Gert Hamer, Hamer. And he did something called the New Medicine. And I was supposed to train with Gert. oh my God, this would have been around 2005. But his offices were raided and he was put in prison. That's a whole story for another day. But one of the things he found was he started working with patients who had cancer. And he found that he could look at the brain scan, and by the lesions of the brain, without seeing the person, he could tell whether cancer was in the body, or vice versa. He could look at the scan or somebody says, wherever it is, and he could tell what the lesion would be on the brain. So he kind of do it either way. But one of the things he started to notice is that there was a significant emotional event for people where it had gotten to a certain stage that was 12 to 18 months before the onset. So he then started looking at the mind-body connection. But when I did that training, one of the things that blew my mind was he said part of the healing phase for the body is when we've got all these symptoms. So when you've got a cold, the cough, the phlegm and mucus and all of that, that's like the sick phase in my mind up until that point. But that was what they call the healing phase, because the body is going, right, let's get all this stuff out of the system. So when it's coming out both ends, let's just say, let's leave it at that. I'm sure you can do your own visual, but that is the body getting rid of things. And I was like, oh my God, that was such a revelation for me, because that is a stage where I would have gone, oh, I'm sick. When I was like, oh, my body is having an immune response and it's now leaping into action and it's getting rid of those. As I said, we're not making any healing claims or anything here. Do your own due diligence, etc. But it was really interesting that clearing phase is often the body saying, right, I'm going to capture all this in the mucus so now we can get it out of the body. So it really is very, very fascinating. So you're going to think about what's your reason for attending, what you see, hear, feel, know when you've achieved it. That's a power move step, because Imagineering is so powerful. Do not underestimate the value, the power of this step. So if you haven't already done it, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes just to, and you can, write it out first of all. So maybe spend a minute, just write it out. I'm old school. I like pen and paper, or you can type. But there are studies to show that actually writing has a different and more powerful mind-brain connection. That's a conversation for another day. But whether you want to type it, write it. 1 minute just to write your statement out, and then 1 minute to visualize your statement and see, hear, feel, and what you'll know internally when you've achieved that. So your time starts now. And thank you, Andrew. Brilliant. I'm really glad you could join us. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm not sure where in the world you are at the moment. And now what you're going to do is see, hear, and feel yourself. Just imagine in your mind's eye that you're doing it. And what will you look like? What will things sound like? What will it be like? How will you be feeling within yourself when you've achieved this outcome? So next exercise is, what's the first thing you think you'll notice in terms of, I call them the green shoots. In terms of those green shoot results, what will you see, hear, feel, And no, this is not necessarily the same as the end result, because sometimes the end result is incremental. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a process. And so with this one, you almost like, it's like an interim statement. So you've got your big overarching ideal, desired ideal outcome. And then within that, one of those first steps is your interim. Now, one of the reasons I say it's important to get that first step is if you're just looking out for the great big thing and it hasn't happened yet, you can, that's where the despondence sets in. Whereas if you're looking for those little green shoots, something that moves you another step closer to where you want to be, and another step closer and another step closer, when you see that happen, you're like, ah, brilliant. Because oftentimes when you're growing a bulb, much like the ones you can see there on the screen, if you're watching this as a video, before you see that, the roots are forming beneath the surface and you don't see any of that. So one of these, I'm going to say, keep yourself a sense of expectation, not like, where's my stuff, but just you're open, you're curious about the first thing you're going to notice. So what's going to be the first thing? It might be that you see yourself just acting differently. Like you might be, if let's say with a meeting scenario, I'm sitting in a meeting and I just, if I was looking at myself, I'm like, wow, gosh, I do look more confident today, you know, or the way you walk, you notice that you're moving differently. It could be in terms of what you hear. There's no longer all of the negative self-talk, or you might get feedback from someone else who said, hey, oh, that was a great report, or I love the contribution in the meeting, like, oh, brilliant, thank you. So you might not have noticed at that point, but now somebody else has noticed. You might be feeling better, healthier, clearer, more energetic within yourself, as one of the clients was saying in the results of the quantum entanglement remote experiment, because they'd felt spiritually blocked for 3 years. You know, they said they felt cut off, a sense of grief and loss as a result of COVID. And then suddenly during the 7-day experiment, they felt uncapped and they felt that connection to source had returned and they were back. So that was a feeling thing. So for a bit of home play, write out your mini statement. We're going to give you 60 seconds to start. Just write, just free note. You can change it, you can update it, but 60 seconds just to start writing what you think and imagine. You just make something up. What do you think one of those first steps might be? What do you think you might first notice as a stepping stone? So your 60 seconds starts now. Okay. Next thing, and of course you can go back and watch the replay, slow this down, you know, make more of a meal on it if you want, take it at your own time. But exercise number 4 is, what's your intention? And this one, very simply, imagine being in the quantum scalar energy field, where you've got that universal energy that Einstein and Tesla were referring to. You've got that quantum entanglement going, the Einstein spooky at a distance, where things that you're working on, the intention can be traveling space and time, and that primal force energy where it retains its power to shift and change and transform whatever it is you're working on. So just imagine being in that field, if you like. And this is just one you play with your imagination. Now, when I was setting up what we call the manifestation protocol, one of the things I've been fascinated with Carl Jung since I was 18 years old and I studied psychology. Now, we were talking about the mind and psyche and Piaget and Freud and child development, but as a sidebar, I came across this thing called synchronicity, and I was like, wow. And then in later years, studying Carl Jung, he talked about the collective consciousness. I was like, ooh. And the collective conscious, I've always described it like there's a stream of consciousness that is above your head, and you can either dip into it and pull things down, like tapping into the zeitgeist, or every once in a while it's like the portal opens and boom, something is downloaded and delivered. But when I found this image, I was like, oh my God, that's the way I see the collective consciousness. So just allow your imagination to come up with whatever analogy works for you in terms of being in that quantum field space. And every once in a while, whenever you kind of think of it, it comes back to mind. Just imagine whatever your version is of being in that wonderful scalar energy quantum entanglement field. Exercise number 5 is permission. Give yourself permission to play and bask in the quantum scalar energy field. A bit like doing the access consciousness, where I'm saying, is it okay to release, resolve, destroy, and create? You say yes. You say, do I give myself permission to play in the scalar energy field? If the answer is yes, you simply say yes. That's it. Very simple with this one. Let's see what we got next. Now, in terms of the next piece of this, what you want to do is imagine. So we're just going to close our eyes for a moment, and you're going to imagine being in the quantum scalar energy field. Now, this isn't a visual thing. You don't have to see something. I've just given you a couple of visual references, but you don't have to see something. You can just let your imagination soar and notice what you notice. You might feel something. You might see something. You might hear something. You might have an inner knowing. It might be none of the above. You might smell something. It doesn't matter. A friend of mine called Art Geyser, he calls it visualization envy, because he noticed that when he took clients through on his workshops, the visualization exercise, there'll be people who were envious. Would be, oh my God, I saw this and I saw that. And they're like, I didn't see anything. It's not about seeing. You just let your imagination, your mind do whatever it is it wants to do. The way it does it is right and healthy for you. So this is not what it looks like, but this is if you needed just a little bit of this one reminds me both of the Matrix and the quantum field and the energy all mixed into one. So just take a moment, take a deep breath in and exhale. And if you choose to, I prefer it, you can close your eyes. So you just close out all of the distractions that are around you. And then imagine what the quantum scalar energy field is for you. And imagine being in that field, basking in the energy. Receiving that wonderful universal energy, where it maintains its integrity, its power, its strength. And basking in those wonderful frequencies. And also the power of the harmonic energy of sound. Just imagine that energy going back and forth. Those wonderful scalar waves. And you being the receiver of the energy. And also the transmitter of whatever it is you want to be, do, have, or achieve. And whether you know what the energy looks like, sounds like, feels like, the intuitive knowing, just notice what you notice and give yourself permission to be in that wonderful scalar energy field. And permission to release, resolve, and let go of anything and everything that it's time for you to release and resolve and let go of at a rate and pace that is right and healthy and ecological for you. And also working at the rate and pace for your individual mind, body, spirit, soul, and energy field. And then holding the energy, the intention, the frequency of that. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And if you've had your eyes closed, you can gently open your eyes. You might want to have a drink of water as well. And again, just play with the thought, the feeling, the idea of being in that scalar energy field. Now, I said there was something that we were going to do for those of you who are here live. We're going to do the 24-hour remote energy party. So if you're watching this as a catch-up and like, oh, I was there, but I had to leave earlier, it's fine. I can see the names. I can see the attendee list in my back office. So I've made a note of all of that. And what we're going to do, if it could be the same as what you've already said, but we're going to do what I call the name imprinting, which is how I started the original 7-day remote experiment, where I did the name imprinting and everyone went into the scalar energy field as a group. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. So what I'd like you to do, if there's something in particular that you want to focus on, so it might be an element of what we worked on with the access consciousness and the Huna, put that into the chat or put that into the Q&A. And this is what I was using for the name imprinting. So I'm going to be using these again, the same things I did for the main experiment. And then these are going to go into the scalar energy field, and I'm going to do exactly what I did for the previous groups. So actually, let me just take it off of the, while you're thinking about what you want to, if there's anything else you want to add, I'm going to, actually, let me just tear off a bunch. It'll be quicker, wouldn't it? Yep, there you go. And what I will do is these will go into the scalar energy field. Oh, didn't quite take off enough. This is another couple. Oops. Okay, so what we'll do, need a couple more. So these will go into the scalar energy field with the intention and energy of getting that energetic ball rolling. So in a nutshell, this is what you're doing. This is what it will kind of look like. It's not a post-it note. It's this sort of size. But I've written your full name on there. If there's an energetic request, I will add that to that now. So if there's anything else you want to put into the mix, get writing, put it into the chat, put it into the Q&A, and then I add that to that sheet of paper, and those will go into the scalar energy field. And that is exactly what I did with the group where I ran the first round of the remote experiment. So we'll do exactly the same with this. Oh, let's put those back. And so that will start tomorrow for those of you who are here in real time. And again, I'm going to do exactly what I did with the previous group. We did the 12 hours, and then we have that break point, and then we do another 12. Actually, what time is it now? It's the weekend, technically, in real terms. If you're watching this as a replay, of course, it's a different date. And actually, if you are watching this as a replay, I should have said that at the beginning, actually, but what you can do, because there's a way, I don't always do that. Sometimes it's a straight out replay. But there's times I can do a hybrid live. It's just a different setup. And so what happens is I answer questions in the chat. So you're watching this original, but I'm not re-delivering the whole thing, but I am there in the background. So as things pop up in the private chat or Q&A, I can actually still answer them in real time. But hold on, my message light is on. I'm gonna cut and paste that just to make sure I get all the words. Thank you for that. Give me 1 second. Where's my clipboard? This is for the scalar energy party. I like the idea of scalar energy. Actually, do you know what? Because I could really run a party, because what you do is just bring the 2 boxes, put them in the room, set up the scalar energy field. Could be a real thing. Right, so brilliant. Brilliant. Right, minus any. Oh, hold on. Did I read that right? Are you saying that your migraine is now gone? Because I think you said energy party, same as above, minus the migraine, which is already gone. All right, so so do I. I love the idea of the party. I thought this will be very cool. I've actually got a party room. I could actually I could use that as a backdrop for one of them if I do something like this again. All right, brilliant. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'll write that on the one that has your name on it, and then that is going to go into the scalar energy field. So I think I might actually start that today, because that means you can then have all day, for those of you in real time, all day Sunday, which for many people is traditionally a bit of a rest day. So I think I'm going to start that today. Seriously, when I show you disco, so says disco balls in my mind, I think there are disco balls in that room. I've got, hang on, let me see, what would I have called it? I'm going to put it into the chat so you can just see. It really is, and there's a music in that room and everywhere. What did I call it? Did I call it party or nightclub? There's a meditation room, the theatre, the tarot room, the Huna room, the bar. Dance break. That's the one I'm looking for. online.transformationstm.com/dance break. I'm not even joking. I've got a nightclub, I've got a bar, but I'm going to put it into the chat. When you've got a minute, there's no login. What you have to do is you choose like a picture and you put your name in. You could call yourself Fifi Trixbell, it doesn't matter. So you put a name in, you choose an avatar picture. They've got cartoons, you can upload your real picture. Most people come in as an avatar. And then when you go in there's a playlist. So as long as you leave your microphone and camera switched off, there can be 100 people in that same room with you, but you're all listening to a different part of the playlist, but the backdrop is actually a nightclub. But yeah, that's the link in there, so check it out later. It's all good fun. So that's the thing. So I'm going to put those energetic requests in, and then what I'm going to say in closing is notice what you notice. Actually, not too bad. I said it'd be about 3 hours. It's 3 hours and 8 minutes at the moment. I know it's a bit late of time on the clock because we started a few minutes later. Internet. So notice what you notice. Expect great results, but be okay with whatever happens or not. So you're expecting it, but not in a where's my stuff kind of way. You just doing Elsa, let it go. Enjoy the process, enjoy the unfolding. Number 4, pay attention to your intuitive guidance. So you might get those little nudges, what I call those divine downloads, where you suddenly just get this spark of a creative idea and go, hey, that'll be cool. A bit like I wonder what would happen if. Number 5, remember that not everything is happening above the surface. So you might be going, well, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? But like those bulbs, there are things starting to take shape between the surface, and eventually then you see those green shoots. Number 6, it may be an unfolding rather than everything happening straight away all at once. Was that the name of a Hollywood movie that won an Oscar or something like that? Number 7, what I've been saying to my clients since the year 2000, notice what you notice. So this is one of my coaching card decks, and it says one of the things I've been saying to my coaching clients since the year 2000 is notice what you notice. This simple phrase heightens your awareness of what is going on around you in terms of, positive change, possibilities, and transformation. So often when I close a session with a client, I'll just say, notice what you notice. I'm not telling them what to notice, because we leave it energetically open to just notice the good things, the change, the transformation, the ripple effect, the synchronicities, etc. And number 8, celebrate all successes and small steps. No matter how seemingly small or insignificant you might think it is, these green shoots and these little successes are the things that get the ball rolling, because you celebrate it, you get a dopamine hit, you feel good about it, and then neurologically it starts to build up momentum. You think, well, hey, if that's happened, I wonder what else can happen. If that happens, I wonder what else can happen. And before you know it, boom. So play with the energy and use this as your guide from here on in. So if you are ready to transcend time and space, if it's a yes, sign up and join us for the Quantum Alchemy workshop. And even if you're not, enjoy playing with the things that we've just started with regards to this. And thank you also to those of you who have already signed up. Very much appreciated. I look forward to working with you, and just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who are here live, thank you also if you were watching this as the replay recording. And, if you found this on social media, YouTube, Facebook, etc., thank you for the time, because, time is one of our most precious resources. I do hope you found it useful. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. That will be very much appreciated. Hit the like button on Facebook as well if I post it there, because the algorithms, man, oh man, they're a little bit crazy at times. So that would be appreciated. And if you know someone who could benefit, feel free to share the link with them. That would be awesome as well. Any questions, any queries outside of this in terms of you watching this and you kind of go, is it still running? Can I join? When is it? Blah, blah, blah. Ping me an email, marilyn@transformationstm.com. That's Marilyn, same spelling as in Marilyn Monroe, at trance, TRANCE, F for Freddie, FORMATIONS. TM is in trademark, so Marilyn@transformationstm.com. My main website is transformationstm.com. If you're not on my e-newsletter list, top left box where you can sign up, red what's new button, occasionally updated. I don't know, updated every day. It's been a couple of weeks, so I've been in Canada, etc. if you're watching this in real time, but that's another way you can find out, but it's most efficient just to be on the e-newsletter. My number is grayed out because my phone is switched off while I'm talking to you. So easiest way to get hold of me is either via email / Marilyn Devonish on social media. Instagram, it's NeuroSuccess Coach. I put a little cross through LinkedIn because they booted me off LinkedIn. I have no idea why. Apparently they didn't like I wrote a one-line post saying, I've just, we're going to do the membership group Tarot Tuesday. That was enough to get my account closed down. So as you're watching this in real time, I'm no longer on Instagram. That may or may not change, but the other socials, Facebook, I was going to say Twitter, X, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, X, sorry, YouTube, Instagram is where you'll find me now. Oh, you're most welcome. So thank you. Looking forward to what's coming next. So am I. Oh, did you have a look at the room? Seriously, the party room is just actually a bit bonkers, but I love it. So yes, you're most welcome. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate your time, your energy, and yeah, let's go forth and make some manifestation magic, because we're right in the thick of the manifestation protocol. So no doubt I will do a little bit of something about that. But yeah, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon. Oh, the migraine is gone. That's amazing. I love that. That is absolutely brilliant. Seriously, I love this stuff. You couldn't make it up. I know when I say to people, they're like, really? But I'm like, no, really. That is amazing. I'm absolutely delighted about that. Really, really happy for you. That is just wonderful. I love that. I love that. I love that. Perfect. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. I think we're all good. I'm just having a little bit of a scroll. Yeah, love it. Isn't it fun? Brilliant. Right. I think I've seen everything. You know, I mean, in terms of the chat, I'm just making sure. I think we're good. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, what I'm going to say is enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in this world. I look forward to working with you if you're joining me on phase 3 of the Quantum Entanglement remote experiment, and really appreciate you joining me. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and then this will self-destruct in about, I don't know, 10 seconds or thereabout. Thanks for joining me. Catch you later.